Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast today. My name is Carah Burrell. Sometimes I go by Nuancehoe, and sometimes I bring on the famed Ryan Fisher as my co-host for the Timmy Did What podcast. Everyone, welcome Ryan.
You're gonna make me
Thanks for being
blush.
here. You know how you want to know the inner thoughts and workings of therapists, but you have to curse the sky that there's laws and client privileges and stuff like that. Not in today's case. Today, we have a document of what Tim Ballard's therapist actually thinks about his operations within OUR. So that's a key detail and a key rebutting to Backfire Part 3. So if you remember, we have been going through Tim Ballard's long-awaited documentary type series he's been posting. Backfire Part 1, Backfire Part 2 we've covered, and then we skipped 3 and we went to 4. And now we're back at 3 as he talks more about his excommunication. And he adds some more key details that using this document, this court document from the lovely Krista Casey, who is somebody that he calls out in Backfire Part 3, where you're going to rebut him with this court document that also includes something brand new. I didn't even know this was legal. What the inner text messages say from Tim Ballard's therapist about what was really going on. So, Ryan, if you want to update the people on kind of where we got to where we are right now, what's been covered in the other Backfire series that are now backfiring, why don't you clue everybody in? And this is a good time to leave your comments, your questions, your super chats, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and don't forget to go down below to our Patreon, donor box, Venmo, and leave us a tip if you like the work that we're doing and we want to support it. Okay, Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, this is entertaining stuff. I've been like super entertained by it because I never know what's going to come out of Tim's mouth next. And Backfire Part 1 and Part 2, those were bombshell claims, but it just keeps escalating. In Part 1, he came out with a video talking about how he was a victim of a political hit job. That's where the conspiracy starts weaving. That's when his world fell apart. Was right after Sound of Freedom came out in the theaters, and he was going to run for Senate. A bunch of women came forward accusing him of sexual assault, and things started going downhill real fast with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints denouncing him. And so Backfire Part 1 and Part 2 were telling his version of stories in the Tim Ballard multiverse, his conspiracy theory on the political hit job that was led by Doug Anderson, the PR representative for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who issued a statement to Vice News and other news outlets totally denouncing Tim as morally unacceptable. And that began the major downfall of his public image. So Part 1 was about that. Part 2 goes into how Doug Anderson is part of the deep church, playing off the words, the deep state, that Trump's combating and stuff like that. The deep state, there's also a deep church led by people who are George Soros, pro-pedophile leftists with a political agenda against him, and that they somehow found some women to claim that they were sexually assaulted that worked with Tim, and then denounced him and all sorts of that. So the deep church is behind Tim's excommunication, which shortly came after the denouncement. And so he talks about the deep church, the deep state, all these people within the church that are trying to take him down, that aren't necessarily the core of the 12 apostles. They still totally have his back. President Nelson at the time was totally appalled, according to Tim, that he was excommunicated. And his bros still have the true servants, the true righteous ones of God, still have his back. And so there's a deep church that's really in control of the apostles. And then he tries to weave this narrative where there's these two things happening at the same time, that the apostles, I guess, have lost control of the church, and that Tim is going to save them by exposing their real crimes, which are satanic ritual abuse of children sexual satanic ritual abuse of children that's happening within the church. And Tim in part 2 comes out and says, I'm going to expose all of that. And that's why they really denounced me, because I told them I was going to expose that. And so that's where we left off with part 2, is Tim was going to come out as a savior and Messiah figure, a true servant, as he calls himself, as foreshadowed in scripture, in the book of Isaiah, true servant coming to the vineyard that's going to save the church from the deep state or the watchmen that had fallen asleep. He throws in there so much spiritual language and scriptures that he thinks were written about himself in the latter days. And so that's like the summary of this multiverse of Tim Ballard, where he's fighting all of these evil entities and is on God's errand and will ultimately triumph in the last days somehow. And that's where we left off. I think that pretty much covers it.
Ryan, you're the best. Thank you. All right, everybody. Welcome to Timmy Did What? All right, everyone is caught up with what we have going on. Now, part 3, let's jump right into it. I really want to get your guys' feedback and comments on this, because obviously yours too, Ryan, because there's so many like little lines of things that he says. And if you just know how a narcissist works, you're like, but I see the story you're crafting with that little, I'm sitting next to my wife and can you believe this crap that I have to write? Like, I'm always writing these undercover sexy text messages in bed next to my wife while we're reading scriptures. You know how I am, super righteous dude. And it's like, shut up. I see the game you're playing. And no, not only that, it's not just our opinions. We have a lot of evidence that we've previously shared, and we have more court documents to contradict just about everything that Tim says in this. All right. Shall we get into it? Any other words from you, Rye Guy?
No, let's get into it. Tim does the best job of explaining Tim. So let's get into it. While you're figuring that out, everybody be active in the comments. Seriously, I get so much validation, and I just laugh at some of the comments that some of our audience puts out there. They cut to the core of what this is about in really witty, humorous ways. I love it. Keep it coming. That's one of my favorite things about doing these live streams is some of your comments. So I love to hear what you have to say. Keep them coming.
Okay, here we go with Backfire Part 3, the excommunication story of Tim Ballard.
After that first very jumbled, mumbled, horrible hit job in the beginning, using a tabloid magazine and defending both me and other Ballard, now we find out what they do internally, as they call me on September 25th, 2023, into the Kangaroo Court. I often go undercover as an excommunicated Mormon, and we have to look like we're saying gross things.
He often has to go undercover as an excommunicated Mormon to say gross things. Okay, this is a new part of the Tim Ballard lore, psychosphere. That this is not something we had heard before. Okay, now Ryan and I have covered that there are text messages of him showing the temple clothes, which is a big no-no in Mormonism, and making fun of the Mormon temple ceremony in some text messages. Was he trying to say that if you see that was me undercover, I would never make fun of the temple ceremony? I am a good, righteous Mormon dude. Okay, but I'll keep playing.
Because you have to create what's called a legend. You have to create your backstory, who you are. I'm a trafficker, I'm a pedophile, I'm whatever I need to be to get into this network. And sometimes they're in training sessions, and you can tell when I'm training someone, I say, are you okay? I stop. Are you okay? Do you want to keep going? I'm laying next to my wife saying, I can't believe I do this for a living. So because I work in this dark and slimy world and have to do things that are crazy and could be misinterpreted, I met with Sean Richards on a standing interview every Monday or Tuesday morning when I'm in town for months and months and months. Not to confess, but to talk, to counsel. When Kevin Pearson first called Sean Richards and told him to have a disciplinary council, they said there was key evidence against Ballard. Sean Richards called me in. He asked me a few questions. He felt my spirit, and he's like, I know you so well. You've already told me these things. He calls back to Pearson and says, I'm not going to do it. So guess who got replaced days later. So I get called in on September 25th, 2023, me and my wife. The Day of Atonement, the one day you are not permitted to do this in biblical law. Oh, but Tim, we can do whatever we want. Of course you can do whatever you want. We know that. We know you think you can do whatever you want. This take president sitting like this in his chair. The two counselors are crying because they know they're about to do something illicit. They lied from day one. I'll tell you about that lie. I walked in there and I said, you have the authority to make this decision about excommunication or discipline, right? Yes. Is this your decision? Because it needs to be yours. Yes, absolutely our decision. He says, I have text messages. So show me the text messages. He wouldn't show them to me. Attorney-client privilege. I guess that's what Kevin Pearson or someone told him to say. Those were out the next week when the lawsuits came out. They were public. I saw them. Guys, go ahead and look at all. I can provide you a...
Go ahead and look at them. Well, if he's telling us to do so. All right. Should we look at the text messages? I mean, we can look at a lot of things, and we have.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is Tim setting up this situation where anytime he does something really sexually repulsive, offensive, anti-Mormon or whatever, he says, well, I was acting as Brian Black. I was undercover. And then when he's doing something righteous and, praiseworthy, then he's Tim Ballard. The problem is there are burner phones that they take on ops, but we have text messages from his actual phone sent to actual operators' personal phones in which he describes his real name. He puts in his name of his wife. He puts in details about his own personal life. So you cannot misconstrue that as a burner phone playing a persona. And
and he wants to have it both ways. And aren't there even tons of text messages we've gone over in the past where he is telling the women, he's like creating a trauma bond with them basically. And he's like, it's just so hard to recover from these operations when I'm Brian Black. Sometimes I don't even know who I am. Am I making that up or does that sound familiar? Like he admits that he gets the personas misconstrued.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't help but think it's also a situation where when if he's pushing, like he talks about in there, that he's like, I stop and ask, are you okay? Are you okay? Can we keep going? With these sleazy training sessions. I think he is using the training sessions to see how far he can push women sexually. And this is evidence, and this is not just speculation, by the testimony of Amy Davis, who was brought into one of these training sessions, not by her own will, when Tim came to her hotel room in the middle of the night at the Grand America or in Salt Lake and sexually pressured her into playing the role of his couples ruse partner and tried to advance on her. And then when that was exposed, he said that, well, she came on to me. He went to her hotel room at 1 or 2 in the morning and went through one of these training sessions. So again, he'll push women as far as he can sexually. And then when he's crossed a line and they're make it known that he crossed the line, he's like, okay, well, this is just a training session. This isn't like you and me. He has an alibi or a scapegoat for his sexual advances. And it's such a clever tool for a predator, alleged, if he is a predator, such a clever tool to see how far he can go with plausible deniability at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The plausible deniability that he doesn't realize that you don't take everything just in its own, on its own. You need to link them all together with lots of different pieces. And thank you for saying that, Ryan. And I just will add to that how is he supposed to know how far he can even, actually train someone and push someone if there's no one else around to supervise him, but B, we know that he has a drinking problem. We have found out recently that he went to rehab. If you have a drinking problem, get help with it. But don't be putting women in positions, especially in foreign countries, in a brothel with, masseuses who come over to do that and more when you were taking a couple shots out of your flask and crapping your pants later. Like, there's tons of stories that we've read in these documents of women who thought that Tim was going to protect them in these really frightening situations that they're untrained for. And then they find out Tim is passed out drunk on the floor. Like, how is he supposed to actually make sure that they feel comfortable when he is inebriated and unconscious? So, Tim, that is another big pattern that you need to stop lying about. All right. So, should we keep playing or should we jump into the document yet? What do you guys think?
Do you have text messages queued up?
Well, what I have is Krista Casey's full document with the therapist, and then with everything that she has alleged that Tim and her had in their history.
I think that highlights exactly what we're talking about. Maybe we should jump into that because those text messages are golden.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to share this screen. All right. So this is a document filed in court, and it starts off with this introduction, Declaration of Krista Casey. And this was only added pretty recently. I think it has the date somewhere, but I think it was just added over the summer. And it's interesting because Tim in this video, he'll bring up Krista Casey, that she was crying and she's like, I believe the women and they're going to pay me a bunch of money and none of it's true. And that's what Tim says about this following document, basically. So she describes Ballard's manipulative tactics, including using spiritual words, verbally overriding what the contract says, the couple's ruse contract, and getting girls horny enough using tricks so that they lose control of their lines, the lines created by the couple's ruse, rules, and contract. So one theme you'll really see with Tim is that he gets really butthurt when women don't find him attractive outside of like when they are playing the role, when he's trying to like get them going. He's like, but don't you find me attractive? She's like, I'm an actress, And so I can see his psychology that he is like, oh, I made them get to, break the couple's rules because I am Brian Black. I am just so flirty and attractive. Do you know what I mean, Ryan? Like, I can see him like really pumping his fist and throbbing in other places at that fact that he has that power over women. Yeah.
And to back up what you're saying, we have text messages that we covered in previous episodes, text messages, conversations that he's having with some of the women that he's brought in to OUR, and where he's encouraging them to get into tantric massages, basically sexual massages.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's we have covered that before in multiple episodes. So this is like an ongoing theme of Tim trying to get women turned on, get them horny, and then preparing them for this grooming it's all part of his grooming. It's all a grooming tactic that he's got kind of perfected at this point.
Right. So she warned that Ballard's extended and absolutely unnecessary practice sessions driven by sexual addiction would expose him to criminal liability once they became public. So now she's referencing McCaleb, who is the last name of OUR's therapist, as we're going to read. McCaleb said there was a culture of protection around Ballard, likening him to a little spoiled brat ruling a country with an army around him. And that she said no one at OUR to go without, said that he had no one at OUR to go to. Okay, sorry. A little spoiled brat ruling a country with an army around him, and that she said had no one at OUR to go to without causing greater harm. She reminded Mr. Cooper, that is Matt Cooper, Tim's right-hand man through all of this. She reminded Mr. Cooper that she is a mandated reporter and insisted he cannot and should not be neutral, urging him to document and escalate Ballard's misconduct to OUR's board of directors. Okay. So these are a text message exchange. And Kelly McCaleb here at the top, that's the therapist. So look for that. Maisie, as I understand it, is another undercover female operative. And then you have Krista Casey, who my understanding is that's like Tim's favorite of all favorite female undercover operatives. Like he said to her the most amount of times that if Catherine dies, that I want you to be my wife, which he's probably said to a couple women at this point, but it feels like Krista Casey was the one that he thought would never betray him, never expose what they were really up to, that he was the most like enraptured with. Like, does that sound familiar?
Yeah, that's familiar because he's told that to most of the women that they are, yeah. He's adorned them with affection and accolades to make them feel like they were the most important person in his life. Again, part of the grooming tactic. This is grooming 101. Sexual grooming 101.
Right. And in the last video we went into, it was like Jeff Frazier was going to be the chief villain of the new Sound of Freedom 2 movie, Too Fast, Too Free. And then the last time, though, Tim was talking about Sound of Freedom 2, he said that Krista Casey, this is in the document that he wrote to the president of the church saying, please let me back in the church. Let me explain everything. There's this bitch named Krista Casey. She's actually going to be the chief villain of Sound of Freedom 2. He said that this woman is going to be the chief villain, like this regular, normal soccer mom from Utah is who people are supposed to be afraid of in the second release of his grand filmmaking. Okay. So,
and one more thing I want to throw in there, like a behavior that I've seen in men, sadly, not just Tim, is that the more they are personally hurt by a woman, the more their vitriol and anger is escalated. And so when you say like Krista Casey's one of the favorites, yeah, she's one of the favorites. And by favorites means he's attacking her personally and professionally in very, very ugly ways. And it really came out probably because she came forward and did an interview with the New York Times along with Kira Lynch and Celeste Boris. And I know some other the women, Mary and Sasha, were also interviewed as well at that time, if I'm not mistaken. And she not only came forward with her testimony, but that was the first time she came forward publicly also and allowed the New York Times photographer to take her picture. If you haven't read that article, go look it up. Mike Baker, New York Times, excellent article, excellent piece, great journalism. And so the more the women hurt and reject him, the more he's going to attack them. And so just want to put that out there as a typical behavior for narcissistic men that we see all across the board. Tim's no exception.
Thank you. Well said. Okay, so I'm going to have to kind of breeze through this until we get to the better parts. So this entire document I will have up later on our Timmy Did What Patreon. So if you want to read through the whole thing, that helps support the show, and you can read this thing in its entirety. So basically, at this part, Kelly is the therapist, and she is talking about the recent operations that they went on and how everyone is exhausted. And then she's going to get into how concerned she is about what she's been hearing from Tim. She says, sorry, guys, I've been in sessions. 1, Mark, I would expect you'd be dead physically, meaning Maisie, actually. I think she misspelled that. Processing all those emotions. It's such hard work. 2, Krista, you have freaking PTSD. 3, Tim is en route to Ecuador today, unless he's lying. Did he send you his PR text packet of all the wonderful takedowns he's had to leave to do last minute, all because of the Russian prostitutes? I was bombarded with his mission plans for the rest of the week this morning. He's playing it super happy and glad I could help Marcella, and has no idea and will never know you came to the hotel, Krista. 4, I would keep dragging my feet saying, yeah, of course, let me but this production is a big one I'm committed to. He won't be able to push it because he's running away. Take your time responding because of your production business. Be super chill. He doesn't know you have conversed with me at all since Mexico. So this is the internal therapist of OUR, which I'm glad that they have, who is helping sort out all these people's business and very much concerned for the operators, how overworked they are, and can tell that Tim is basically a crazy person, making people also crazy and do crazy things. So continuing, just setting that to clarify. As for me, I actually got mad at Cooper, that's Matt Cooper, Tim's right-hand man, for the first time ever. He was in shock. I told him almost nothing because he couldn't handle details, but also was just acting like he didn't know how we could deal with this and a lot of ingrained Tim protection. I couldn't articulate at the time. It was night. I just got home from Salt Lake. I was exhausted, but I just started crying without really getting what I needed to express. I didn't recognize being pissed at Coop. He wanted me to handle it with the CEO that I don't trust further than I can throw him. He just seemed too tired to understand why I had to do this and that he was so neutral. He talked about Elder Ballard and trying to think what he would have him say to Tim to gently help him along. I apologize profusely for my emotion and taking so much of Coop's time, and I was tired. Bye. But then I slept and then listened to a few of Ballard's talks. Help myself with this one. She sends a link from General Conference of a talk that she liked. Again, this is an LDS therapist. And I was fired up again instead of defeated, but Coop was gone emotionally, and I get that, but I needed him back. So I told him, get ready for my report, and sent him a long-ass debrief of things he needed to understand and wake up about. Very confidential and kind of boring, or kind of long, but if you're interested, here it is. And this is what apparently she said to Matt Cooper. An essay on why I was so emotional and the real problems I'm aware of. These problems leave me with tied hands and no reasonable plan to protect the innocent, get the ill helped, and protect myself from lying sacks of shit who would call me a quack. A hypothetical story meant for your only Coop's entertainment. How any comments so far? And this is then what she lays out about what she thinks is wrong with Tim.
I don't know. This is so disgusting and disturbing. Yeah, Cooper is one of those guys that you got to understand who Matt Cooper is. Just picture Gronk from Emperor's New Groove. Is it Gronk? Is that the right character? Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. Kind of the big, dumb yes man that doesn't have a clue what's going on, but will do whatever his master says. That's who we're talking about here.
Yep, that's perfect analogy. Okay. It is long because it is complete. What I see, what I propose, and potential unwanted consequences predicted through educated hypothesis. I didn't get the privilege of E. Ballard's toolage, but I've been listening to different talks of his today and getting clear. I had assumed you knew I'm a mandated reporter and that LCSW's clinical opinions carry solid weight in issues of workplace law, mental health interactions because we work not just privately, but socially. Our diagnoses are as legally legitimate as any doctor. I understand you can't get involved in a hearsay matter, but the only way for what I know about specific behaviors to not to be reported is to not report them and not make them be reported. Instead, we would only need to rely on clinical diagnoses, performance reviews, researched and proven reasons for limiting time in this line of work and changing behaviors observed. Since they think I'm a crazy person or will at least spin it that way, you said the only way that they will take the seriousness of T's, meaning Tim's, situation is from your testimony. Okay. You, of course, can't have a secondhand account, but I can't ask them to tell anyone without having to make a statement myself. See the problem? Here's the solution. Unfortunately, you cannot and should not be neutral. I think you're in a stage of acceptance, sorta, but a stage of I don't give a F. You have to give a fuck. You can report changes in his habits, what you have recognized in his ops partners recently, your knowledge of any inebriation, your knowledge that he shares hotel rooms with his ops partners when necessary, and to what extent you know he loses judgment or abandons partners on an op. I can state clinical diagnoses without having to my justifications, except that I have thoroughly interviewed him and watched him and had observations of those around him. He is a danger to missions, OUR, and himself. I cannot push any operator to talk to OUR. In fact, since my experience has been you can trust no one at OUR, I wouldn't recommend they do, because it would further traumatize them and legally put them in a position of knowing they'd never be asked to do an op again when they feel a desire to do so. Woo, let's pause there.
Well, he's a danger.
Everything that we've been saying, like the women who have had the internal, external investigations that show that Tim is all the things he's alleged of seem to be very much true. Here we have the internal therapist at OUR saying the exact same things and begging Matt Cooper to be transparent and honest, because she can't even tell the people within OUR to seek help because she's afraid of Tim Ballard coming back and having retribution. I don't know what to tell you guys.
Yeah, that's the mafia boss right there. Like, we've already shown on this podcast that John Lyons, 25-year veteran of Homeland Security, Tim has no idea what he's doing, completely unqualified. And now we have the therapist within OUR. And right after we talked about Jeff Frazier, the CEO of OUR, former one, who's called Tim, said that Tim is completely unqualified and should not be in a position of leadership in OUR, that he's mentally unstable. And now we have the therapist working within OUR saying that he's a danger to the women around him, and that he's putting in practices that are dangerous and compromising, sharing hotel rooms with them, and putting them in sexually and physically dangerous situations intentionally. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, if you're a Tim Ballard fanboy at this point, after having 3 very highly respectable professionals completely shatter his fictional persona of this righteous guy, I don't know what to tell you.
Dang straight. All right. Well, should we keep reading?
Yeah.
Okay. She asks him if, like, you need to talk about how he's been inebriated. Again, to the earlier point that we just made. That Tim says that he's checking in with these operators in the training to make sure that he doesn't push too far, whatever they're comfortable with. Your knowledge of any inebriations. That just doesn't mean alcohol. Also could mean drugs. Ketamine could mean a lot of things. Okay.
And you know what like bothers me about this, like his problem with drug and alcohol abuse. I hate that's even in here, because then some people will say, well, if he steps out of line, it's probably because he was intoxicated somehow. And he steps out of line majorly, intoxicated or not. That's like kind of not a factor. I don't even think that's a major factor, because what he sets up, these situations are all premeditated, pre-planned. Totally. The couple's ruse wasn't just like, oh, I have a drunken idea, let's come up with this couple's ruse. No, it was crafted over months and years, and then fine-tuned. Sober Tim fine-tuned this, essentially this spiritual wifery type of stuff, to encourage and groom and manipulate women into being his partner over years. So yeah, alcohol, drug abuse definitely has a role to play in this, but it's not what's driving his bad behavior. I just want to drive that point home. It's who he is at a core, which is driving his bad behavior.
Well said. All right. So she's saying, I wouldn't recommend that they do, would further traumatize them. Another legal thing I probably shouldn't assume is that workplace sexual encounter laws are very different from dating, etc. Interesting. So the power differential, the fear of being on a dangerous mission, so not going along with plans or in the moment decisions could be deadly. A boss's manipulation through using spiritual words of their vast experience, verbally overriding what the contract says, and getting girls horny enough using tricks for them to effectively lose control of their lines, not to mention the constant reminder of what they can't say to who and stories of how he treats disagreeables. So much there. Everything,
Wow.
I swear, every text message, every episode is led to reading these words from this therapist. This is just a summary of everything that we've been talking over like the last 2 years, right, Ryan? Like everything here, it's right there.
Yeah.
Like, dead in the water, dude.
What brings to mind, I'm going to tell a story that one of the women told me, and I'm not sure if she wants me to tell this story with her name or not. It's probably okay, but I'm just going to leave it out just in case.
Go for it.
She was working with Tim on a daily basis, and he had her so, like, I don't know, fired up about saving kids by telling her things that kids are being abused by thousands every day, and they're just waiting for us, that when she would go home at night, she wouldn't even be able to like focus on her family or enjoy her meal, because she's like, I need to be saving kids. There's kids that are being abused right now while we're sitting here in our little Utah suburban home. Like, I need to be helping them. And when you get in such a mental frenzy for trying to save kids, when there's such a crisis in your own mind, it puts you in a fight or flight mode, not a rational, logical, I'm going to make a calculated decision, be able to think through problems, be able to recognize things. It's a fight or flight mode where you just have to act. And Tim gets women into this state so then he can tell them where the safety is and what they need to do to get out of the situation or to save kids or to accomplish the mission. And it's a mental trick.
It's a cult leader.
It's a cult leader.
Like
mental trick.
Like a cult leader.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was there for that story too when she said that. And when she spelled it out like that, it makes perfect sense. You know, we all have trouble putting work away when we go home with our kids. But if the work that you could be doing is saving kids and all of these horrible atrocities are happening to them right now. And that's the way that Tim talks, like in his interview with Last Dispensation, where he's calling out Sasha, like, because that she put her name into this lawsuit, now dozens and dozens of kids will be because of her. They're going to be in a lifelong living hell because she spoke out. So that, you know, deters them from wanting to speak out. But yeah, the mental frenzy, you're right on there. Like, I'm sure that's how he talked to the women. That's what they've described to us. And how are they supposed to like think clearly and rationally when they're saying, you know, now the expert who told me about this says that I need to take my clothes off and let them touch my taint. Like, is that the right word? What's the name of the space between, not to be graphic, but we're going to get into what Krista says that Tim did to her in a hot tub in a second. But like, Tim manipulates these women to the brink of insanity, you know? So it's really sad that so many Mormons who have come over to our side and understand that Tim Ballard's, you know, not who he says he is. Mostly they'll only just say, it looks like they were dating. It looks like it was consensual. This is not consensual for all of the reasons that the therapist just said, the power differential and so on. Okay.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. We have to laugh sometimes, guys. I'm so sorry.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I've almost forgot what I was going to say. But you brought up a really good point about what he told Sasha so he says after the fact that because she is exposing OUR tactics or came forward or just discrediting Tim, that is causing kids to be abused. So he's saying that publicly about Sasha, which gives us a clear-cut window into what he's saying in private to keep these women from talking. That's his go-to talking point. Like, make sure you keep this under wraps so that we can preserve the integrity of the mission. We can't expose anything. Otherwise, kids are going to be abused forever by the hundreds, by the thousands. And so his statements to Sasha just gives us a perfect window into what he is saying in private to people like Sasha, other women operators, to keep them silent. So that was a great point that you brought up, and we just can't hammer that home hard enough.
Yep, we have the connection conspiracy board of all of the things that, like, because that makes sense because Tim said this and this. And just want to acknowledge my super chat from Raccoons and Friends Productions. Thanks for the $10. Timmy Poopy Pants Ballard's delusions and gaslighting is truly disturbing and scary. Plus, his usage of LDS set dressings in his videos towards faithful LDS members' wallets is gross. Yeah, the set dressings. Somebody who makes films would know exactly what he's trying to do with his little Jesus statues and all of his pictures of Jesus behind him. And he is setting the stage for his performance, you could say.
Yeah, he's created a character out of himself that he's trying to emulate, of a righteous crusader. He's got the Jerusalem cross on his hats. Sometimes he'll wear tactical stuff that has absolutely no purpose. And then in these videos where he wants you to believe that he's on God's errand and he's fighting the corrupt deep state church and evil people, he'll have behind him all of these Jesus religious symbolism and stuff as part of the whole set design to try. And if you still think, well, that's just his office or whatever, he intentionally puts this dramatic, heartfelt music behind all of his videos, again, as proof of manipulation, trying to manipulate your feelings into having a reverence for him and swelling with pride that this is a righteous cause that you're helping him fight. Total manipulation.
Exactly. And I just want to read this comment too. I can't imagine the emotional, psychological mind F that he puts on Catherine. Thank you, Krista Virgo. Are we going to be going into, hopefully we'll have time, because as well as reading this document and going through Backfire Part 3, I also have queued up what Tim has been posting of his wife responding to, different questions about how are you still faithful in the church? Do you wish the church would come out and take back their statement about Tim? And she answers different questions about her testimony. And it's a little bit of a window into her psychology. My advice is always dump him. But if we have time, I'd love to get into that in this episode too, because I have some hot takes. It's probably going to piss some people off, but I have some hot takes. I look like Catherine right now. We have the same freaking hair color and style right now. I could
you don't
role
sound
play as
like
her.
Catherine, though.
Yeah, I have too many brain cells. No offense. Okay, intact.
Well, let me throw out there a call to action for our audience. The Catherine story, we haven't really dove deep into the Catherine Ballard side of things. We have a video response of her queued up, but we keep not getting to it. Catherine is somewhat of an enigma. And so if there's anybody that has personal experience, I knew Catherine and Tim early on, prior to 2017, pretty well. We took their family camping with us and dinners at our house, and our kids played together. But the 2017 onward Catherine, there's obviously an evolution of Tim and her on this. And if you were around for that, you had firsthand account of what you saw in that evolution. I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out and let us know what you have. This is that's a side of the story that I'm still piecing together some of the pieces. So if you have insights on that, please reach out. Love to hear it.
Yeah. And since we do have some insider knowledge about Catherine, we might need to save that for another episode, because we're in the midst of collecting some more evidence on that. Also, just wanted to read this comment from Everyday Joys. Any chance you guys have an email? I have info on a victim of SRA, and Tim is using her story without her consent. Yep. Down below. Love to talk to you more. If you have anybody out there in the audience has any tips that we can investigate, you can lead us into some clues or connect us with people. My email, thenuancehoe, is @gmail.com, is down below. Then we also have a Timmy Did What email. Ryan, what's that one? That's the one.
Yeah, timmydidwhatpodcast @gmail.com, I believe. But just find the link in the description. Send it to both. So we have send it to both emails if you can. That'd be best.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So, okay. Getting girls horny. And then we left off on stories of how he treats disagreeables, as he's doing right now. The church is a disagreeable to him. These elements of power in a work scenario make him a de facto guilty of even acts where explicit consent is given. Where non-explicit consent is given, forget it. The standard of what's illegal in paid role is, quote, unwanted sexual behavior without regard to compliance or even initiation. Tim should really have lawyers or an HR good enough to make sure he understood that up and down. He is in big trouble beyond loss of reputation if his extended and absolutely unnecessary practice sessions get out. Oof. That's why we're here today. They got out, you know? No one wants that to happen, but rather he be educated and become aware that his addictions are a danger to everyone and change rules. I haven't ever even informed an operator of those laws. I'm not OUR's lawyer, but social workers know nevertheless. If operators who have left, groomed, or manipulated have to talk about it to Brad or HR or you, I am put in a terrible ethical position of mandated reporting. She's saying I am galaning? Is that what she's saying right there?
That's what it looks like.
Is she Ghislaine Maxwelling? What does that mean?
Is that a term nowadays? Ghislaine is a euphemism for
I'm helping him sex traffic women?
I guess so.
Is that I'm galaning so hard for people that don't even like me. If it is dealt with based on the assumption of his behaviors from coworkers' observation, his mental health, and researched best practices for operators who work in child sex crimes, no one has to know shit. I am trying very hard to protect and educate before someone who actually doesn't care about the big picture or people or who is after money. All capitals, not fucking me. They have no idea how much I've been on OUR's side and helped them, quote unquote. I am actually furious I'm in this stupid position with no backup or anyone to trust in a position of power. Worth. I'm sorry to be brutally frank, but there it is. I damn near felt like you weren't believing me last night. And why I was so emotional, realizing how on my shoulders alone this really is. Saying things like, if it's as bad as ... or if they really feel that ... as if what I'm saying may or may not be truth. I am not sorry I've had to bug you with this. I have no one at OUR to go to that would not cause worse harm everyone involved, especially to me personally. The protection of Tim would just continue. Like a little spoiled brat ruling a country with an army around him. So if I can only tell you, I have to tell you. If I believe like I'm stressing you out, / you're wishing I wasn't here bringing this up, then yes, I feel horrible about just doing my job in the most protective of OUR way possible, and also betrayed and abandoned like a female op in a massage parlor. Woo!
Oh boy. Wow. That's pretty damning.
Can you read this part, Ryan?
I think I don't have my big monitor hooked up. I could try and hook that up though.
No worries. Sorry, Coop. I love you. I respect you. I am coming in hot right now because I need to pull you out of apathy for just 24 hours to handle this. Then I promise I don't want anything to do with OUR ever again. You won't have to deal with me, but I am not going to wait around for someone to spill the beans in the future and be on record as his therapist who knew. Hell no. That's my professional concern and duty. As for my personal concerns, they are all about Tim's well-being and avoiding him facing legit jail time at some point in the future, and all his worst nightmares coming true when an Alona type feels jealous or vindictive. I don't know what that means, but I get the rest of it. I care deeply about your well-being and others' well-being who are innocently doing a great work at great personal expense. And then my well-being. This is shitty. Finally, I care the most that the right prevail of and my Savior's name is not being used in vain to commit sexual acts. Bombshell. And that my beloved church is not in the headlines. It's about to be. I understand all of this is out of my control, but that doesn't mean I will lie down and let the adversary destroy people without at least a fight. We got to pause there. Comments. I mean,
wow.
Dude, are you kidding me? She just explains exactly who we know Tim Ballard is, predicts everything that's going to come out. I can tell she's very emotional, and she's been talking to Matt Cooper, trying and begging him to say something. She feels the weight of the world on her shoulders as a professional who has a reputation, and also just as a Christian, as a Mormon who's trying to do the right thing, and admits that she sees Tim using the name of her Savior in vain to commit sexual acts, which is exactly what the couple's ruse is alleged to be. It's about he's got the power, he's got the mandate from Elder Ballard, from the apostle, that he is allowed to use his psychic and find these attractive hairstylists and soccer moms across Utah and put them in situations where they're vulnerable and pretend to protect them as they are trying to save kids, quote unquote, but it's really a ruse to get his rocks off and further his insane narcissism with millions of dollars at his disposal and a church that he would never think would actually excommunicate him and throw him under the bus, which is exactly what they needed to do. Like, she feels the weight of a word on the shoulder. I guarantee so many people within OUR would say the exact same thing, as well as people within the church, that they are begging Tim to get some help and follow some guidelines. But he still is off his rocker, still to this day.
Yeah, no, you're right on. And what she's describing, the Tim that she's describing, is on full display in these backfire videos that we're talking about, that were made obviously after this testimony was given. She hits a nail on the head. And she's disgusted and repulsed by him using the name of Jesus to justify himself and his crimes, using the name of the church, using the name of Elder Ballard to exalt himself. This was happening like long before he came out and attack the church, in an attack mode on the church, accusing them of satanic ritual abuse, accusing the deep state and Doug Anderson of political hit jobs and trying to take him out. Like, the spiritual manipulation is his foundation for building this empire, this cult that he has. She hits the nail on the head right there. And I mean, it couldn't be more obvious in these backfire videos. So this is a great time to bring in this testimony to explain the concept and the persona and the image of the movie making mythology that Tim is crafting in these videos. And the sad reality about all of this is he still has a following. He has almost 1 million subscribers on Instagram alone. And so he's putting out these videos, and he's still wielding the same spiritual manipulation to his followers. And if you go to his Instagram or go to his Facebook or go to his YouTube and you read through the comments, there's still hundreds, if not thousands of people that are like, "We believe you, Tim. Keep up the good fight. Never back down. Satan's rampant out to get you, but God will be on your side." So his tactics work. I mean, they're very, very effective to certain people that don't recognize it as spiritual manipulation, as gaslighting, as just straight up narcissistic lying. It still works. Like, go to his Instagram, go to Tim Ballard 89 and take a look at the comment section in there, just to see for yourself the effect that this kind of spiritual manipulation has on people.
Totally.
It's still effective, even in 2025.
Right.
2026.
And just wanted to answer this question from Krista Virgo that says, "I'm not familiar with Matt Cooper. Where and what is he up to today?" From what we can tell from Tim's posts and when he's traveling the world, like when we covered when he was in Syria, Matt Cooper's still his right-hand man. That's never spoken a word against him. Anything else you want to add?
Well, yeah, I don't. That's interesting. That's a good point. Matt Cooper's still traveling around with him as of 2 months ago, but I haven't seen him recently. I know that everybody that works with Tim is abused by Tim sooner than later, usually.
Mm.
Some people can turn a blind eye to it for a long time. I turned a blind eye to it for a long time, but I wasn't severely abused like a lot of other people have been. And I'm just waiting
Don't
for
sell
that
yourself
day.
short.
I'm still going waiting for that day when Matt Cooper he crosses a line with Matt that he can't accept, and it's going to happen eventually, but so far it hasn't happened yet. So he's still the right hand man. As far as I know, Matt Cooper and Catherine are like his go-to bedrock. We'll die on this hill with you, Tim, type of
Yeah.
persons, and that's where we're at.
Yeah, I would agree. Okay. She goes on to say, Tim's therapist at OUR doesn't want my church not to be in the headlines. I understand all of this is out of my control, but that doesn't mean I will lie down and let the adversary destroy people without at least a fight. The Ballard talks I listened to today were clear about Satan's deceptions, the misery it causes, the destructive nature of any addiction, especially sex. Oh, is she implying Tim Ballard has a sex addiction? Interesting. And our duties to seek out the lost sheep. Oh, is she calling Tim Ballard a lost sheep? Interesting. I know you're tired, but you are a shepherd, Coop. I hope you still trust me and haven't written me off as a nuisance. I am and have ever been after the ultimate good of the cause. That won't change. If you feel that I am being dramatic or that this is just irritating and unnecessary, then I'll just wash my hands and let Tim and OUR do what they want unchecked until I read about it in the paper. But I need other operators who have had concerns to be honest about them, to tell what they've observed. There's no news story in that scenario, just protecting and serving and not keeping secrets that endanger others, like a band of brothers. Get him home safe. Keep your job. These things aren't incompatible in any way. My 99 cents, and that's all I have to say. You'll be happy to know when I meet with Tim, I'm only going to interview him about what he is struggling with emotionally. I don't need to talk about any confidences or hear him say, "Me too," even one time. He will prove himself emotionally unable to be safe on ops. Let me know if you want to corroborate that with your observations. That's my clinical recommendation. Kelly. I said he had to listen to this song right after reading it to understand who Tim is. Oh, we should go look at that. Uh-oh. We didn't do our research. We should plug in this video.
Oh, there's a YouTube link.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Both of you do the same. Yeah. Doctor's orders. Listen to every word and feel her fighting to validate you, please. Anyway, Coop is awake now. Phew, that was a lot of texting. I lost my voice. We're going to fix it. She says, I sent this to Tim and I can't really see what it says. She says to Tim, wow, I've been in sessions all day. Great news to read at the end of long hours. We'll be praying. Be safe. Do you know how long you're gone for yet? I let Marcy know her work is paying off. I just sent this to Tim after he sent me every confidential piece of evidence, video, police documents, you name it, that no one should see. And because only me and Mel Gibson know about it, it's how he's going to make me feel so privileged and that it's all is good, and let Marcy know this is because of her. I went through the docs. It was a separate tip-off. One tip was from the pedo you guys arrested, and it's a good lead, but he tries to act like it was from the prostitutes. I hate being treated like I can be bought with excitement and secrets, and Mel Gibson, who is so excited for me to meet. That makes sense too.
That's really interesting. That's a great way of phrasing it. Trying to buy people with excitement and secrets. This just happened to a friend of mine who's a filmmaker who just a month or two ago, Tim asked him to come do some video work for him. And he for free, of course. And he tried to buy him with excitement and secrets. He told him, I've had a prophecy. I've seen how this all ends. How I've had a revelation, or I've seen a prophecy, or maybe it was through Janet, how this ends. And I'll tell you about it, but you have to promise me that you won't tell anybody, not even a soul. And he was like, well, I tell my wife everything. He was like, all right, well, never mind. And then he wouldn't tell him what was happening. So buying people with excitement and secrets, that's a hallmark tool, 2 hallmark tools that Tim uses. Well said. That's perfect. And I also just want to comment on how badass Kelly is for stating the truth, stating stuff honestly. Like, hats off to her for saying it how she sees it. Because there's a lot of people out there that aren't willing to take up this fight, that do also know the truth, do know what's happening, and do know who he is and the harm he's caused people, and are still not coming forward with what they know. And so hats off to Kelly for her courage and for her honesty. I really appreciate anybody that will say what they mean and what they know in a straightforward, honest way. And they have my respect, because so many people we've come across that they're not willing to do that, that join the OUR cause, join the anti-trafficking cause. And then when it comes down that one of their own is the alleged trafficker, the alleged abuser, they shrink away from their proclaimed cause. And but I understand it takes a lot of courage to go after somebody as narcissistic and vindictive and angry and as Tim is. But if you got it in you, if you can summon that courage to add your voice to Kelly's and everyone else's that has come forward, please do so. It's needed. This guy's a monster. He's wreaking havoc in people's lives. He's re-victimizing his own victims, and he's still growing in following and popularity in some very dangerous circles. So please come forward, try and find that courage, do whatever you need to do to protect yourself and your family. But this isn't a time for shrinking away and letting people like this run our world. Letting people like this wreck marriages, families, lives. I mean, absolutely destroyed people, absolutely destroyed them psychologically through these alleged crimes that he's committed on people, and continuing to victimize these people. So if you have it in you to go after alleged sexual abusers and spiritual manipulators, then please take up the fight, and come forward with what you know, either anonymously or not. Putting your face and name on it is the best thing. Just another call to action. Please consider it, because we need you in the fight. We need more people like Kelly, and more people like all of the other women that have come forward to be able to right this ship and stop the abuse.
Yep. Because Tim still has his Tim Ballard Foundation. He's still continuing the things that we've already talked about. And he'll now, without even it being a nonprofit, now it's like a full-blown LLC, right? So his abuses are continuing if people don't speak up. So our email, again, thenuancehoe@gmail.com. And all of our links are down below if you want to get in touch with us. And we can connect you to some other helpful people if you don't want to speak on our podcast. But thank you for that, Ryan. Okay. So then Kelly goes on to say, P.S. This text thread is not one Cooper knows exists. It's our private therapy line. So don't assume he knows anything I tell you. He wants to be on a need to know basis. So I'm taking care of that. Maisie says, I love Coop, and you can feel within him a strong need to protect, but to protect everyone at the same time, even if one side may be abusing the other. This is impossible, and the conflict and internal struggle within him is real. He has a strong sense of loyalty for very good reason, and he also gets it. He gets how this line of work destroys someone, so he feels sympathy and compassion. He's hard on himself too, and he knows that he too has made his own mistakes. So how can he accuse Tim of anything when he himself is also guilty of making mistakes and or deep down knowing and not even seeing, however, choosing to look the other way, play naive and play neutral. He's being forced to open his eyes and look away no more, which forces him to even acknowledge his part in all this. I would want to run away so bad too. I totally get it. He can't leave you alone though, Kel. Exactly, Kelly writes back. Maisie goes on to say, Tim is self-sabotaging so bad right now. He needs real friends willing to let him hate them if needs be to save him, save OUR, and save the mission behind OUR. And so interesting now that Tim, like we talked about in our last episode, is now sabotaging OUR. And, you know, he'll sabotage the organization that he built up, that he started as CEO. If they're using his name and face or anything in their SEO searches or in any of their commercials or whatever, you know. So he'll self-sabotage till the day he dies if it makes him look good and the people around him that he used to be friends with, that used to sacrifice for him, and put their name and reputation on the line. He'll sabotage everybody, you know. Sorry, that's my words, not Maisie's, but this falls perfectly in line with everything. Kelly then says, I'm just glad we have the history that I can empathize and say, too bad, you know what's right, and I will be there to help. Maisie goes on to say, 100%, aside from everything, Tim's mental health is so bad right now. A person has to know when to bow out for the greater good. Tim is not OUR. He seems to have that very confused currently. He has the pride of Goliath right now. Kelly writes, yes, it's the highest and most difficult love to care enough to stand your ground and refuse to let them destroy themselves if you can do anything about it. For whatever reason, I can't imagine enabling someone I love. I could care less if they hate me. Coop told me all about OUR treasure is in heaven. I'll get my due. And of course I said, picture of Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. So Maisie writes, what fascinates me is that Tim keeps trying to prove all the intel we received from the Russian prostitutes, but has anyone even mentioned to him that I was the most disturbed by that night with them and that I felt like we got zero info from them? Therefore, it was all for nothing. Kelly writes, he knows. When you mention true things, he just starts yelling ridiculous arguments. You have to play silly games. And then a picture of Ralph Wiggum standing like he don't know what the F is going on. This is Tim, Maisie writes, and then they laugh. All right. So that also is a common sentiment that we have heard before. And another testimony from the women. And, Tim has invited massage workers to rub down the women. One particular person I'm thinking of who was very uncomfortable with being massaged down. And then Tim would say something to her like, I've never, really known how women masturbate. Can I see it? And then the women start doing it on his couple's ruse partner. And then she felt some fingers enter her and was obviously very traumatized and uncomfortable with the entire experience and visibly shaken. And then when they left, she was crying in the bathroom is what she reported. And then Tim came in and said, oh, we're going to save so many kids. I got so many sex traffickers' numbers for that. It wasn't all for nothing because look at these phone numbers. You can't see them too close, but I got some phone numbers from some sex traffickers because of that digital rape that you just went through. That's another common sentiment that we hear. So here's some other evidence alluding to that same corroborating allegation. Do with that what you will. Ryan, what do we do here?
No, well said. Yeah, this is so disturbing, and I don't know, it's just disturbing. It's disturbing. I don't know what more to say about it. Oh.
Should we read this super chat? Thank you, Raccoons and Friends Production, for the $10 again. Excellent points, Ryan, on gaslighting and just straight up lying towards accusations with receipts. Then the accused just say, no, then peeps trust just because they want to believe in the cause.
Yeah.
That sums it up.
Yeah, you're right on. I mean, two things are going on. One is that people want to believe that Tim is who he says he is, especially the longer that you put into the organization, the longer you put your own time and energy and emotional investment into the organization. When you find out that it's not what you think it was, Tim's not who he claims he is, it's harder and harder to believe that, because that means that all of the effort you've put into this organization for years maybe has been for nothing. And that's a really hard thing to accept. That's something that people go through, that go through the faith crisis. It's no different. The faith crisis, the longer you're in an organization, the more you put into it, the more you put into a relationship or a marriage, the harder it is to accept that this is a failing endeavor and you need to walk away, or that it wasn't what you thought it was, and that you've wasted your time and energy and money, and all of the pain you felt, you've wasted that. And so I get it. I mean, I get it, but that's the reality. And people that have invested heavily into Tim and OUR and into the story and have believed it have a harder time accepting that they were misled, because that is a reflection on yourself that you were deceived. And that's a really hard pill to swallow. That's been a really hard pill for me to swallow, that I spent 7 years of my life in devotion to this guy and some of his causes, to come to realize that I was deceived and misled and used that whole time. What does that say about me to myself? It shatters self-confidence. It shatters the confidence I have in my own judgment. And that's what people are going through. And I understand that. But some people aren't willing to cross that line. We saw that with the Catholic Church when they came out with all of the sexual assault allegations about the priests and the whole scandal and stuff. People still stuck by it in a lot of ways because they could not accept that was true. And it took a long time for people to actually accept that as true. And then there's some people that still accept that it's not true, that won't accept that it's true, because they've invested so much in their religion, in their faith, that it's like, that couldn't possibly happen. And if it did happen, what does that say about me and my judgment, that maybe I was turned a blind eye to it and things like that. People in OER are going through the same process as people going through faith crises. And I see that. It's hard.
Right. Yeah. That's what a lot of people go through. You've heard of Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis. It's a really important podcast and video series that John DeLynn, part of Mormon Stories, put out. It's called Gift of the Mormon Faith Crisis, which I like that reframing, because once you deconstruct that you were bamboozled so much and you can recognize that, it can be a gift. And then you can start the second half of your life built on, foundation of better identity and better principles, better values and stuff. So this is, for some people, hopefully, as terrible and horrible as it is, the gift of the OUR faith crisis, some might say.
Yeah.
Paisley. One second. I just gotta say, thank you so much for the $50. Mwah. Love you. That really helps a ton.
Yeah, and thanks.
They really traumatized the therapist, honestly.
Yeah, they did.
Looks like it.
And this is a licensed therapist that's probably seen some pretty crazy shit over her time as a licensed therapist. And then she becomes a therapist for Tim Ballard in OER. Is just like, what the hell is going on here? This is such a disaster. Like, I don't even know where to start.
It makes me think of, sorry to interrupt you, but it just makes me think of how every single organization that Tim has jumped to, from OUR and throwing all those people under the bus, to Aerial Recovery Group, to Spear Fund, and now Tim Ballard Foundation. And who does he have around him? Like we mentioned, Matt Cooper and his wife, Catherine Ballard, but I'm sure he has a bunch of other people, cameramen, operators, CEOs and administrative people and board members. And, you need more than just Matt Cooper to help you run this organization, right? So I'm sure he has a lot of other people that he has to put in place for this foundation to work, unless it really is just a fraud that he's funneling money to himself. And he's not doing anything else but that. But aren't there people in his new version of OUR right now that will probably go through the same things that the operators went through and the therapists, and same things that John Lyons went through as COO? Is Tim not just going to keep recycling people until he reaches some tragic end sooner or later? Like, do people not know that this is the character of Tim Ballard? Are they really just ignoring all of this? Like, he's got just this wake of just dead bodies that people have to swim through to get to some position to work with Tim Ballard. Like, I'm so curious if there's people within his new organization that just don't know this. And then they're coming to the realization like, oh, everything. Yeah. Okay. I got it. You know?
Yeah.
That's what I think of.
No, absolutely.
Did you have another thought that you wanted to add?
Oh, I was just reading. Yeah, I did. But Everyday Jays had a good comment. Where they said Backfire is right, though. He thought he was going to turn both the Exmo and Mormon communities against the church, and they did come together, but against him. That's the true Backfire. Totally. I know. I found it so ironic that he calls this whole thing Backfired. If you notice, like in Backfire Part 2, where he came out and said that he's going to expose the church for satanic sexual ritual abuse of children, and he's going to blow the cover on all of that. That backfired because, first off, he's not blowing the cover. He's actually been completely silent about it. He's moved on to trying to get his Sound of Freedom movie 2 made. That seems to be his entire focus right now, not the exploitation of children being satanically ritually abused in the church. All of a sudden, that's gone away. But I think what really happened is he came out with those claims, and then everybody was like, dude, I'm jumping off of this crazy ship. Like, this is too much, Tim. Like, if he has something, if he has evidence, if he has victims, and I don't want to marginalize victims in saying this at all, because I really believe there are victims of that out there, and they've come forward, and we should believe them, and we should look into it. Absolutely. But Tim is only using those stories of real abuse to try and punch back against his critics. It's not because he cares about the sexual ritual abuse of children within the Mormon church. So there's that. So that was the ultimate backfire right there. I think he lost a huge part of his pro LDS base by coming out with those claims, because obviously he's walked back from that, not talking about it now. We'll see if he really comes forward. He said he's going to sue the church. He says he's going to do a lot of things, expose who was involved with all of that, and he hasn't done any of that. So I think he was just using the victims' stories and cause to try and threaten church officials into giving his membership back, and it backfired because I'm sure the church is like, hell no, this is like, you're proving our point why you need to be out of this church. You're proving our point. You're a danger.
Exactly.
Ultimate backfire.
Speaking of backfire, okay, so let's switch over for a moment and finish watching Tim explain in his Backfire Part 3 more about the church excommunication. He's going to add in some more other little details. And then if we have time, we can go back into the document and read through some of Krista Casey's statements about what happened on these undercover missions. Sound good?
100 more text messages like this. This is undercover operations. Those texts that he was referring to that he had aren't even the worst ones. I have texts where I'm sending horrific images back and forth. Understand, we go undercover. And I was talking bad about the church. I certainly was. I have to have subjects to talk about for weeks on end that aren't just children. I got to be friends with these guys. So I pretend to be an excommunicated Mormon because of my trafficking habits. And then they start talking about the church, and I can say every bad thing I can about the church in detail. So you're going to find that manifested in my undercover operations. Okay, that's what they had, but they couldn't show it to me. They were trying not to show it to me because they knew I could probably defend myself. Do you see how gross this is, guys? Can you imagine anybody, any church, you get called in by your ecclesiastical leader with your spouse, and the ecclesiastical leader is sitting there like this, sitting back, like in that kind of posture, and then proceeds to tell you that your spouse has had penetrative sex with a woman that doesn't exist. You know it's false. Your wife can't believe it. And he won't even tell you who the woman is, okay? Refuses to tell you who it is.
Krista Casey came in
who chose to lie the day before, and we caught her, and the witness that was going to catch her, that had caught her, was outside the door, and this ecclesiastical leader won't let him come in and refute the obvious. The reason the ecclesiastical leader wouldn't tell me who the woman is because she doesn't exist in the real world. She doesn't exist. I think she is, and I say this not jokingly, I think she does exist in another realm. I think she's an angel from hell that torments these people, keeps them up at night, because she doesn't exist, and they need her to exist. Because if she doesn't exist, the condemnation.
Well,
go for it.
Okay. Okay. What is going on here? So help me. I don't know. I need your help me like figure out what he's actually saying here, because he's saying that he was accused in his excommunication or disciplinary council of having sex with another woman, but they wouldn't tell him who, which he says is because it's somebody that doesn't exist. But then he says, actually, I do believe she exists in another realm. What is he talking about? Is he's referring to, the way I'm reading this? Tell me if, I don't know if you're seeing it different. Is that he's accused of having sex with a woman that she actually does exist in another realm, and she's evil spirit or a destroying angel, some sort of satanic angel, basically, that is also tormenting women. Is he saying that is that also who he's accused of having sex with? So did that person like appear to the stake president, or is writing the messages to the stake president? Like this, what is going on here? Like, I don't know. I need a little bit of help.
I think in layman's terms, it's basically like, you think that dumb bitch and I had sex? Well, I would never have sex with a dumb bitch like that. That lying whore, she's a bitch, she's evil, she's a destroying angel is really what she is. You think that I would ever bone a destroying angel? Fat chance. I'm Tim Ballard. That's a stupid lying bitch. That's basically what he's trying to say. Like,
so maybe
I get what you're saying. I'm putting it in layman's terms.
This destroying angel like possessed some of these women that then sent the text messages that exposed Tim as having a sexual relationship with. I don't know. It's he's crossing signals
getting into
here.
Spiritual language to try to evoke that feeling.
So we've expanded the Tim Ballard multiverse to a multi-dimensional multiverse now, where there's evil spirits that are coming in and out of people that are apparently in Tim's multiverse, multi-dimensional multiverse. Female evil angels can send text messages to Tim, and that's what he's getting nailed to for. I guess I don't know.
That's so good.
This is so bizarre. It's so weird. Like, somebody make a movie about this. Write a script. This is.
Yeah, I know.
It'd be funny if it wasn't true.
That's true as well.
So weird.
But which says,
well,
I like your style. It's this one that says not him. That style, or just my style of laughing at the ridiculousness of this. Yeah. The reason why I said what I said just now, the whole lying bitch rant that I just went on, is because if you just know how these Utah County douche bros think when they don't have the veneer of their religiosity to hide behind. This is him spiritualizing and religiositizing, you know what I mean, his words to speak to a certain audience. But deep down, you can read these text messages. You can look through the entire story. This is Tim, who obviously got Krista Casey into some type of compromised, manipulated relationship as his couple's ruse partner that he thought he'd never have to have the text messages revealed and have him sitting in front of a stake president's office with him possibly being excommunicated. He thought that he was in the free and clear, that he could go as far as he could possibly go, manipulate as much as he possibly could, and he would never get caught. So this is his desperate attempt to use this religious language in some way that makes sense to hardly anyone. I obviously didn't make sense to the stake president because they still excommunicated him. This is his spiritualized language, but at the deep down, he's just a really narcissistic Utah County douche bro with a lot of CrossFit friends that he brings on missions that he thinks this is how the work gets done. And if you ever get caught, just add in some religious language. But what he really means is, oh, like, you think that I would ever have penetrative sex with that dumb lying bitch? Well, did you know she's a lying bitch? Because I don't have sex with dumb lying bitches, and she definitely is one of them. That's all he's trying to say. Normal vernacular.
And she's possessed by some evil spirit, and that's some evil spirit from another realm, I guess.
That seeks to destroy. I know. And just to add in my own personal flavor into the story, one time I was dealing with a narcissist. We all, my take on narcissism is we all have varying flavors and degrees of it, depending on, a lot of situations are co-created. But nonetheless, I was dealing with somebody with some hurtful narcissistic problems in my life. And I've talked to, friends or therapists or family and stuff. And it was when I was like really crying to my mom about it one day, a couple of years ago. And you want to hear like some feedback from your parents. I was just in the restaurant yesterday that I had this conversation with my mom. So it's fresh in my memory. And I'm just like waiting for my mom, who is extremely MAGA, extremely Mormon, listens to Rod Meldrum from Foundation. She used to be in the same kind of Mormonism that Tim is in right now, the one that Ryan, you're also familiar with. And I was just waiting for my mom to say something that would help me through the situation. And she goes, maybe I think they're possessed by Satan. There's not much you can do, unless they repent. Unless you want to come back to church and call them to repentance, they're possessed by Satan. So that me pouring my heart out to my adorable, lovely Mormon mother, that's pretty much the only understanding that she could have about narcissists and people who hurt you and the control that they have, like child psychology or any kind of, best practices. She thinks that all of those things are kind of like woo woo and who, not woo woo, but like, just liberal science-backed philosophies of men, you could say. But going with things that are just satanically possessed, don't you see that, Carah, is where a lot of Mormon brains go. Not all of them, but people in the Tim Ballard camp. So I understand why Tim would kind of say that, because I grew up with it. Okay. Now, all right. So they need this destroying angel.
Okay, let's hear more about her.
Upon them, it's a long road. It's a long road. But here's the other thing that's going to agitate them even more. I know the time frame that this woman was supposed to have existed. It's in 2022. In 2022 is when I supposedly had penetrative sex with this unknown woman. But the thing is about 2022 is that was the year that my life was documented almost incessantly. I was with people or cameras everywhere I went. So you get to see exactly what I was doing in 2022. Because we were filming a massive operation. You can run on. It's the operation depicted in Hidden Warriors. Now let's get to section 102.
I hate you, Tim Ballard. You are scum beneath my feet. You are using this to promote your movie Hidden War. Timothy Blaine Ballard.
Marketing shift, just like that.
I couldn't have had penetrative sex alone in a foreign country or hotel room or what have you. I couldn't have had penetrative sex, is his point, because my life was documented in this movie that I just need everyone to go see. Lights flashing. How could I possibly have had penetrative sex when I had cameras following me? Oh my gosh, I have a camera on me right now. And I have a lot of penetrative sex, okay? I will tell you right now. It's because the cameras aren't always rolling. Are you stupid? My gosh, you guys, actually, I don't have any. I have never had penetrative sex, because if I did, you'd see it on a camera. That's how you know. That's how you know.
That's how you know.
What?
Apparently, like, unless he had a GoPro strapped to his head and was live streaming 24/7, how are we supposed? Why would anybody believe that? Why? Was he live streaming 2022? That's when I was live streaming my entire life. Even when I was pooping on the toilet, I was live streaming it. So I don't know. You go watch the video. It's all contained in this 1.5-hour movie called The Hidden War, which you really shouldn't watch anyways.
Somebody said that I took a massive dump and didn't flush. Well, I'll have you know that my entire life has been documented and filmed. Well, if I left that stinky dump, you would know because it would be on film in the Hidden War in theaters everywhere. Oh, gosh. He has
now
strained.
playing at.
My brain's not working. What's the phrase? Stretched, strained credulity.
So
is that what I'm looking for right now? But this is a big one. I couldn't have done it because of the film that I was filming, and now am I promoting? So, okay. All right, Tim. Oh man.
Out of all of the bullshit excuses we heard for how he couldn't have committed these alleged crimes, this is the most pathetic. Like, I had cameras everywhere. You can't do it. It's the most pathetic. I'm really sincerely embarrassed for Tim. Not that he thought about that, but that he actually put this in a video and then spread it all throughout his social media as excuse, as his defense for how these allegations about having an extramarital affair could not be true. That's his defense right there. And oh my gosh, I'm embarrassed for him. I'm embarrassed for him too. Again, his best defense would be showing a picture of his small dick size. I think that would be the best defense. Be like, how could I have penetrative sex? Have you seen this tiny little tuna can pencil that I'm working with? But that's neither here nor there. Okay. So let me caveat this joke.
Brian doesn't like when I mention that.
no, it's I know some of our audience is gonna be like, oh wow, they have really gone off the rails with their sexual innuendos and jokes and stuff. That's in the court documents, okay? The women that have been abused by Tim allegedly were interviewed by police, and they described their encounters, which included a less than average size penis. And so, jokes aside,
really
there's actually,
Napoleon complex small.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure people know we're being
jacked up truck, kind of small. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Covenants. This is very easy. In all cases, to avoid injustice, to avoid injury to innocent people, in all cases, you must allow the member to decide to have a council of 12 people. If it's not a complex matter, but this is complex. This is a man who just announced he's running for senator. This is a man who just came off the biggest news of the year, who just met with President Trump. You don't think this sounds complex? And he said to me, so I don't want to embarrass you. I said, embarrass me. You'll be embarrassed if we have a council, so let's go. Nope. I can override that. Because I am your judge in Israel. These are conspiring men. Do you understand, Mr. State President? I have to say State President because the scripture doesn't recognize priesthood in this person. D&C 121 makes that very clear. You give someone a little power, they will almost always take it too far. And if you exude unrighteous dominion upon the souls of men, amen to the priesthood. I don't know how you get around it. The mental gymnastics these guys have to do to keep themselves sane. So what?
Tim, I thought it was the last episode that we did when you were talking about OUR that you already called, or the pot calling the kettle black. And here you are doing it again? Tammy Lee of OUR, she was drinking on the job and bringing her boyfriend along on operation so she could have sex. And now we have Tim saying, and there's these people who think they're judges in Israel who have to do all these mental gymnastics. But you know what? These are just a bunch of conspiring men. And I forgot what my point was, but you guys already heard what he said. Whatever he just said is he's guilty of. Sorry.
You made the point. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep. We follow.
Always accusing others of what he is guilty of.
Yep. Okay. Accusations are admissions of guilt.
He's doing is sitting in the throne of Jesus, violating Jesus' words. All he can think about is himself and how right he is and what a great judge in Israel he is. This is disgusting, guys. He would not let me have my Jesus-ordained promised rights. I happen to know that a woman named Krista Casey went to my friend Todd and Tiffany Tueller, and we have declarations about this, and said, I'm going to go lie about Tim Ballard. And she's crying. She's like, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I believe the other women, and I want to.
And just to set the record straight, none of the women at this press conference that happened in 2023, none of these women are Krista Casey. So he's showing the other women. And I don't think this really helps his case much, because he's like, look at all of these women who all have exact same stories of how I spiritually groomed and manipulated and sexually assaulted them. like, is that really helping his case? I don't think so. Okay, so
Yeah.
on the left, we have Celeste. Woo, go Celeste.
Take a look
on the
at
right, we have Karen. Woo. We love you. Number one fans.
Yeah.
Keep fighting.
Yeah. Do these look? These are the ringleaders of the Mortensen Mafia, apparently. And I don't know. Take a look at. Do they look like the typical pro-pedophile, pro-leftist, lying, destroying angel type of people? I can assure you, they're not. They're not. So
I can assure you they're not as well. I know some other people might do better journalism than the Timmy Did What podcast, but this is a pro advocate for victims type of podcast. So I do not hold back on cheerleading for these women, because they've been through hell and we love you. And I've heard their stories close personally, and I absolutely believed them before, and I believe them even more now. And they have absolutely been through the ringer with this guy, and they want it to be over. They are not in this for the money. They just see exactly what the therapist just said, that this is going to hit the headlines. There are going to be victims who are going to have to speak out. There's going to be lawsuits. There's probably going to be some jail time or something for Tim. And the therapist was already alluding to that. And here are the alleged victims. Here they are, Okay.
Yeah. These ones are not fictional. These women actually exist. Like, Tim doesn't need to, I mean, he can say that the one that the stake president is talking about is some sort of interdimensional text messaging demon, but these are real women that have real evidence, real testimonies, real documentation, real text messages, real stories, and they also have 10 times the courage that Tim has in their little finger. So
damn straight. All right.
Damn straight.
Support them even though he never did anything to me. No, what she was really saying was, I want the money they're promising me, okay? So guess who I had in the parking lot? I said, I got Todd Tuller in the parking lot. He's going to come tell you that this woman lied to you yesterday. No witnesses. I'm your judge in Israel. I won't let this witness come in and speak. He's in the parking lot. He is a member of the church. He's a high councilman. I'm your judge in Israel. No witnesses. Come on, guys. Are you serious? And you want me to believe this? What he's telling me and my wife, you are no longer married for eternity. Your covenants are dead. Your children no longer have a father who they have.
Not to just beat a dead horse, but I mean, the obvious point here is obviously, Tim, whatever covenants and eternal promises you made to your wife, those were gone probably a decade ago. But at least once you got the idea about the couple's ruse, and your covenants, those are your own mistakes, and your marriage is in shatters because of your actions. But furthermore, your children no longer have a father. He has 9 kids. And from what we can tell from the reporting and stuff, it sounds like in text messages and everything that I've read, he likes to be away from home as much as possible because he struggles with alcohol addiction and, the home life of Brian Black when he gets back to, like, I don't know, Saratoga Springs, Utah, to role play as a normal dad picking up his kids from school. I don't think he's really that present of a father, nor does he want to be. That's just kind of what I'm gathering from the information. So I don't think you really had a marriage. I don't think you really had a family preceding all of these allegations from women. I think you already made your bed and are lying in it. That would be my hot take.
Mm-hmm. But what do narcissists do? They blame all of their problems on other people. So the stake president is the one that's caused all his problems in this case. And Krista Casey.
Okay. And Krista Casey, among
eternity, because I'm your judge in Israel, and I can override the words of Jesus. People on the High Council are outraged. They know that policies, it's not just policies, guys, it's scriptures have been violated. There's one named Paul who had the courage of the Lord. He went and confronted the stake president. It's like, you're destroying this family and you're destroying their mission and you violate the scriptures. And they got into a back and forth and Paul said, look, I will be implicated in making this horrible decision. So therefore I have no choice but to resign my position in the High Council. And you know what the stake president did? If that's the case, then give me your temple recommend. Paul said, gladly, you can have my temple recommend. A picture of Jesus comes crashing down on the floor. The Day of Atonement, the picture of Jesus, the voice in the upper room when I talk about the lukewarms, deliver the rights. How many signs do you need before you know you are being vomited out? As Revelation 3:6 indicates will happen when you use his name to.
Right. Picture of
Okay, we're
Jesus
getting into
falls
woo-woo
off the
land.
wall.
We're getting to woo-woo land where he, according to Tim, he has one ally on the High Council that still is drinking the Kool-Aid, and he's weaving this prophetic conspiracy theory about this event that it happened on the Day of Atonement, which is a religious holiday and a Jewish holiday, and that day is significant in Tim's mind. So, and I've seen this. We could do a whole special about his religious calendar alignment that you look at. It's almost like astrology or something, but in a Mormon religious view. And so he believes in his mind, because this happened on September 25th, which is a Jewish holiday of the Day of Atonement in the scriptures, that somehow that's significant to him and it's extra offensive to God when he is supposed to be forgiven of his sins, and instead he's held accountable for his sins. And so there's aligned. He believes that that's prophetic, and that's significant, and that it happened on that day. Then what were the other points that he was making in that? He's so hard to follow sometimes. And then proof. Yeah, obviously proof that this was. Yeah, Jesus' photo falls off the wall and the picture crashes. Like, I want to know if that even happened. Like, I have a hard time believing that. Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know, did Tim have a dream about that? Or what Tim often does is he tells stories that happen to other people, but he claims that this is what he experienced. It's stolen value. That's what we saw when we talked about the John Lyons testimony. Tim is crafting himself as if he was John Lyons, as if he had the experience and the expertise of John Lyons, who had 25-year career at DHS. Meanwhile, Tim got kicked out allegedly because he couldn't even pass a polygraph test, and he had a glorified desk job.
Totally
didn't get kicked out, but he was looked at, according to John Lyons, by his peers as somebody that was completely incompetent. Oh, but he did get kicked out of. It was Guatemala or El Salvador or something. John Lyons, his former boss at DHS, said
Panama.
Panama is one of those Central American countries where he went down there, finally got a remote assignment, and John Lyons was was told that that country wants him to never return, that he's insubordinate, lack communication, lack expertise, and jeopardize the entire operation or whatever they're doing down there. And he wasn't welcome to come back to the country ever. I don't know what happened, but it was really obviously very bad. So he sucked at his job. Anyways, the point that I was getting at is the religious language and spiritual manipulation includes prophecy mixed with scripture, mixed with DNC 112, mixed with now proof of all that is a spiritual manifestation that apparently Jesus communicates by knocking his picture off the wall when he's upset about something. That's what he's saying. And but I think that he's probably telling a story that happened to something else. Another example of that is there's a story that I heard him say on one of the fundraisers about his son, that Catherine had a spiritual prompting to call their son. She did so, said, "What are you doing?" And his son had just like logged on and was looking at porn. And so Catherine was getting a spiritual download about that. And I don't think that story happened from the people that I've talked to, that it actually didn't happen to them, that he was talking either about Janet Russin or somebody else, that he has a habit of taking people's stories, especially in his origin story about the kid that was trafficked to Mexico, is coming across the border, and then Tim shows up on the scene. The kid runs and jumps into his arms and sees him as somebody that can save him. That didn't happen. That's been reported on. I think it was Red Pilled America that reported on that, or Vice News. I think it was Vice. Yeah, it was in Vice article that none of those events happened in the way that Tim said. They probably happened to other agents, and then he appropriated those stories for his own use. So I can't help but think, with the patterns that we know, that the picture of Jesus falling off the wall happened to somebody else. He heard the story. He's like, I'm going to use that in my narration, in my fictional creation story too, as well. But if you were in the High Council or the stake president, can you verify?
Tell us otherwise.
Tell us otherwise. If that happened, that'd be really interesting, because maybe there's paranormal activity that I don't know about, that I'm not familiar with, and enlighten us, please. Not saying that sarcastically. I really genuinely mean, reach out. If that happened, I'd love to know about it.
Yeah. And thank you for that, Ryan. And huge thanks again to Paisley, who said they're going to change their name to Destroying Angel. I support that. Thanks for the $50. They said, Tim tried to gaslight his way out of excommunication. He's not going to fare well in prison. He will end up in solitary confinement for his own protection and end up going insane like Warren Jeffs. Yep. I mean, he'll have the schizophrenic voices from God to keep him company, but that would be very interesting to see. Okay.
Destroying Angel, like that's a Joseph Smith reference. Joseph Smith named his his pistol that he took. I believe he had it at Carthage jail. No, actually, that was a different pistol given to him by Willard Richards or something. Anyways, he had a pistol, a revolver that Joseph Smith called the Destroying Angel, and then that was also a nickname given to Porter Rockwell, the alleged assassin of the church. That may or may not have taken a shot at Governor Boggs. Anyways, Tim's invoking Joseph Smith history.
Your history,
Yeah, I got a lot of stuff in my head, and it's almost never useful, but there you go. I finally have made use for those 2 church history facts.
I didn't even know them. I am like a Ken Jennings of Mormon trivia, and I didn't even know that. Thank you.
You are.
All right, we've got like another...
We should go on a church history tour, you and me, and invite other people, because there's a lot of stories that get left off of the church history tour because they're not exactly, I don't know, they're just controversial stories, but it's really fascinating history. I wonder
the Destroying Angel tour. That's what we'll call it.
Destroying Angel tour. Yeah, there you go. All right.
Okay.
Tangents. Getting off track. Back to the video.
See what he has to say.
Work evil acts on the innocent. Paul left the room saying, well, I guess we know what Jesus thinks about this. And yet, the state president moved forward undeterred.
Backfire.
Okay.
Yet the sick president moved forward undeterred because, as we have already explained, the only way that this happened was this first presidency, the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. They had to have known what Tim was up to. My theory, if I may speculate, is that Brad Bauer, who is M. Russell Ballard's son-in-law, had business ties that go back for about probably a decade with Tim Ballard. And he was not the closest of confidants, but he wants to protect his investments and make sure that Tim is not screwing over the name of the church. And so I speculate that things were needing, like just the same way that the therapist is like, people need to help Tim. I speculate that somebody reached out to Brad Bauer and let them know that Tim is going off the deep end and that these women are, making these allegations within OUR, and there's been these Davis County investigations with Troy Rollins, and things are starting to reach a fervent boil here. And before they boil over, the church might need to intervene. And who are they going to speak to that might listen and be coherent enough and under the age of 80? Brad Bauer. And this is my speculation again. I'm just piecing together. I'm usually pretty good at predicting, and I like being proven right later. So this is my theory. And then Brad Bauer meets with Tim, gets really concerned about how he's acting. Maybe he sees some text messages of this Brian Black character. He's not falling for the undercover ruse persona. And gets in contact with the first presidency, and that's where they start to contact with the PR department and realize that Vice News is asking them, to make comment. Like, all of this stuff is kind of boiling up, and they need to make this denouncement of Tim. And that had to have been that denouncement that came out in 2023 about Tim not having a relationship with Elder Ballard to distance himself. That obviously had to have been passed through the first presidency. So they are becoming aware of this relationship M. Russell Ballard had, and they are just trying to protect themselves. And they once had a brand with Tim Ballard, and now they are breaking that brand and telling him to get lost. And that information obviously had to get to the prophet and had to go to a stake president to eventually excommunicate him. So when Tim acts like, oh, well, you're saying you made this choice, stake president, or you're saying you made this choice, like I should have all of these rights, I should have a witness come in and defend me. They already had their marching orders. I think we've covered this before, that what they had in front of them was the denouncement from the LDS Church saying that this is from, the prophet, from President Nelson, and that's what they were going off of, is if the church is going to denounce them and carry that through, not just a statement to Vice News, but also carry it through their publications like Deseret News, it's pretty serious. And that means that the church stands by that statement, and that if they're going to say that publicly, they obviously need to get this guy out of the church and excommunicate him as well. And so Tim he's acting completely oblivious to the fact that obviously everybody all the way to the highest echelons of the church knew about that. And that is still proven by the fact that we know that Tim tried to get reinstated into the church twice. And there's an entire letter that he wrote to the church about all the reasons that he shouldn't be excommunicated and he should be rebaptized in full fellowship, and that didn't go through. And so after 2 years of complaining to the church to try to get back in, those types of complaints, those go straight to the first presidency. Like those are high profile excommunications, and that would be a high profile rebaptism. So I'm sure the first presidency of the church was well aware of all of this, and they still said, excommunicate your ass. But the way that Tim acts, he's like, nope. M. Russell Ballard was super supportive of me to the day he died. The president of the church was super supportive of me to the day he died. He loved me. I was his best friend, and we all cared about each other and sang Kumbaya. That's just not the way that the evidence is played out. That's not the way that the world works. Tim wants us to ignore all of those facts. But that's the story. That's what I think happened.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those are the facts. He was excommunicated. He appealed twice. He is still excommunicated, and he's bent about it. He is pissed off about it. And so if there was, he had 2 opportunities to appeal the excommunication. You have to wait at least a year, I believe. And reversing excommunications has to be approved by the first presidency. You're absolutely right. And so that hasn't happened. So his story about the top leadership still having his back, still believing him, still like getting inspiration from God that Tim was wronged, the facts completely refute that. And otherwise, Tim would be in the church today. He'd have a temple recommend, but he doesn't. And so his go-to is to deflect blame and attack his accusers. And I could also just put out there, we've talked about this before, because I do have some journalistic standards, having been a journalist for Fox, CBS, and NBC News, 15, 20 years ago. I did some of my homework when all this happened. I got a hold through a mutual friend to Derek Westra, who is in the PR department, works directly with Doug Anderson, the PR representative that issues all the statements for the church, that issued the statement denouncing Tim to Vice News. And I talked with Derek Westra. I'm not outing him personally because Tim has talked about him in his previous Backfire video, and asked Derek if this came from the top, and Derek confirmed, yeah. He's like, when I first heard about it, it was really out of character for the church to publicly denounce somebody like this, really unprecedented. But he confirmed to me that it did come from the top, from the very top of the church. And so Tim's stories and the facts of the situation absolutely don't align. Like you said, 2 completely opposing. They both can't exist. His story and the facts on the reality can't exist in the same place. unless
You're right.
I don't know, unless you do mental gymnastics somehow and come up with a conspiracy theory about a deep state within the church and the actual apostles, but that doesn't even hold up to any sort of scrutiny for 5 seconds. So just wanted to back up what you're saying is that's truth.
Mhm.
It's pretty obvious at this point.
Thank you. I knew I was right. Thank you so much. Yep, I am a little bit more of the comedian and the just trying to be a girl's girl, wherever I am. And Ryan's over here with his journalistic integrity, whatever. That's helpful to the Timmy Did What credibility. Thank you so much. So for the rest of the episode, Ryan, how much time do you have left?
Yeah, you're trying to decide if we should go into the Catherine response. How long is that video?
I was going to save that. I want to save the Catherine response, actually. I wanted to read some of Krista Casey's statements from her document. So let's finish up with that. Okay. So here,
let's finish
Tim just threw Krista Casey under the bus. He said that she is the chief villain of Sound of Freedom 2 and mentions that she lied, said that she believed the women, but she actually knows that Tim's innocent and brings her name up in his excommunication hearing there, which I don't think women really need to lie at this point and say that Tim Ballard is guilty of all of these things, when what we're going to read here is just completely consistent with the pattern of all the other text messages, all the other court documents. But it's very compelling because I feel like she is one of the most, the main characters of this entire story. And we haven't really gotten into, of the Tim Ballard multiverse, and we haven't really gotten into her story very much. So this is Krista Casey's opening statements. Starts with, it's on the screen. No, it's not. One second. There we go. Okay. Why now? I feel compelled to participate in this lawsuit because no one else had my back when I needed it most. And the way I intend to right the wrong is to have my own back while simultaneously advocating for countless others who have been harmed while Tim continues to denounce the truth and skirt the consequences. This is not a matter of revenge, but a matter of justice and love. Quote, allowing people to face the consequences of their actions is a true act of love. That's how we learn. That's how we develop resilience. That's how we wake up to the need to work on ourselves. From the holistic psychologist, Nicole Pereira. I could never have anticipated being part of a legal battle and have lived so that I wouldn't need to be. Even when I have been terribly wronged, abused, and robbed in my past, I have walked away quietly with my head high and moved forward in a different direction. In this case, I cannot in good conscience or integrity walk away or hide, though I would far prefer to if I didn't feel this responsibility. I am a lover of truth and will use it to protect and defend others at personal cost. With the same passion for the cause for which I was willing to risk my life going undercover to expose human traffickers, I now lay down my personal comfort, safety, time, relationships, and reputation to voice my experience and allow truth to unfold. Very powerful. Thank you, Krista. The timing of Tim's behavior coming to light is exactly as it had to be. Anyone who has previously tried to open the curtain has been crushed. I was told I would be as well. Those who have revealed truth at the expense of Tim's image were labeled traitors to the good cause and to Tim personally, who has enough clout and devotees that he is often referred as infallible and has proven to be invincible to date. I was told this, quote, nobody mom with 4 kids from Utah, quote, wouldn't be considered credible. To the extent that I could speak and be heard, I always have and will. I begin speaking about the mistreatment of operations in April 2022 after a traumatizing operation. Was this the year that Tim said that he couldn't have possibly had penetrative sex because he was filming?
Yeah. He was live streaming 24/7.
Okay.
His entire life, apparently, or something. We can go refer to the video.
Okay. So Tim says, couldn't have happened. I was filming a documentary, but Krista says, here's some text messages. After traumatizing operation, when I spoke with Tim about it, I immediately began working with OUR executives to create change and care for operators. Based on what I outlined, OUR offered me a position to oversee operations, but it never fully materialized. She writes and says at the top to Tim writes, and Brad loves your new role. He got it write Baskel and sees the urgency. I can't see what that says. Spoke with him today right away. It is urgent. She says, that's awesome. It's so needed, especially with more and more recruits. Agreed. We need to find more dudes. I'm the only one I trust right now. The others don't get it. So if anyone's worked in a new workplace, and I've had this experience before, not to call out the camp that I worked in 2024, but I was an administrator there and I saw a lot of the problems and I was like, oh, I'm a problem solving girl. I'll just go around. I'll collect what all the issues are. I wrote them all on a piece of paper. And then I had a meeting with my boss, the operator, the owner of the camp. And I said, here are the issues that my counselors are having. And I outlined them and they're like, so thankful that I came to them. That's so great. Come to find out, they have no intention of implementing any of the things because this is just the way that the camp is run for the last 60 years. And I'm just the new person who with a lot of spunk and spirit, hoping to improve things. If anyone's worked at a new kind of corporation, your bubble gets popped. You're like, oh shit. All right. This is just the way that it is. And nobody actually wants change. I see a lot of, Tim being like, oh, super enthusiastic. Thank you for this new encouragement. I'm proud of you. I'm excited that we're working together. Do I actually plan on making and implementing any of these changes? Absolutely hell no. But not letting her know that. You guys know what I mean? Okay. Within a few months, I learned that Tim was even more mentally and morally degenerate than I had been aware and had since abused other operators. A few of us proceeded carefully as outside insiders to put an end to Tim's behavior and ability to do harm while safeguarding ourselves and the cause we supported. In October 2022, I personally experienced what I believe to be criminal behavior and received Tim's backlash when I called him out. I also informed Coop about it, meaning Matt Cooper. In April 2023, I received information that another female operator had filed a claim for sexual misconduct. OUR began an investigation, and each woman willing to testify did so with great hesitancy, intentionally and cautiously acting in integrity to protect the organization, parentheses, to prevent the cause from being publicly tainted, and Tim's public reputation as the face of OUR. The concluding report was detailed and indisputable enough that the board unanimously agreed Tim had to step down. Bam! That's what I thought. The board, stacked with Tim's family and close friends, reached a settlement that concerned many of us since it allowed Tim to separate without assuming full personal accountability or giving him any impetus to receive the help necessary for behavioral change. That is just such a loaded sentence in a good way. Like everything we just read from the therapist, like everything that we already know about his severance payments. She's also adding her voice to this. And this is a court document. She is going to be grilled by Tim's attorneys and have to find proof of all of this and have corroborating evidence, which there is a ton of. So this is a legit statement that has been consistent for the last 2 years.
Yeah. It's all under oath.
Right. The board of OUR failed in its responsibility to uphold its mission and values regardless of status, influence, or fear tactics. We warned OUR's attorney that failure to hold Tim accountable would cripple the efforts and intent of anyone sincere about protecting those who had been harmed and silenced in the hands of predatory, lucrative, dangerous men. In the interest of and protection for all involved, we made every effort to maintain silence to the press and public regarding the specifics of Tim's behavior and names of women abused. Despite our efforts, the press eventually got word of the investigation and drew it to public attention. I wish we weren't here. I wish we weren't here. I wish it was handled with an OUR. I wish everybody was able to step up and talk to at least the police and file police reports about all of the sexual abuse. If not, the people within OUR kicking him out sooner. We don't want to be here. The women who've had to file these lawsuits and put their names and faces out there and been harassed in the public for the last 2 years, none of these people wanted to be here. That has been their statement from the very beginning. Tim's story is that they're in it for the money and the fame. Call absolute bullshit on that. No woman wants to have their deepest, darkest, most embarrassing secrets of how they were abused and maligned and manipulated by a narcissist out there for the public to comment on. Like, this is exactly what Tim has made himself out to be time and time again. This is who he is. Somebody who does not understand the ramifications of what's going to be coming if he thinks he can just keep saving his ass. But it's hit the press, and here we are. Okay. Despite our efforts, the press eventually got word of the investigations and drew it into public attention. Tim had not indicated a Senate run until, conveniently, the day before the press printed the leak about the wrapped investigation into his sexual misconduct. Because Tim is always like, I'm somebody who just had this Senate run. There was, $10 million thrown at me. That there's this cabal of people who don't want me to expose the lies within the LDS church and the satanic sex abuse rituals of children. And they don't want me to run for Senate and get the Sound of Freedom bill passed. They want me to stop from all this stuff. Bitch, you had announced it the day before you knew this was leaking to the press, so you could use it as a very convenient misdirection.
Mm-hmm.
Got my eyes on you, Tim. We're not that stupid. Okay. Tim malevolently linked his political announcement with allegations investigated and verified long before, inciting public anger, and demanded for Tim's victims to step forth and defend ourselves, which has led to further victimization, especially without the resources for personal and or legal protection. I've never wanted to disappear from life this badly. I am so sorry. It has been inexplicably debilitating to be so vulnerable, unsafe, and uncertain. And this is coming from a woman who dines with traffickers and cartel with intent to betray them.
Wow.
Just so we're super clear, I just want to make this crystal clear. The Tim Ballard that we have been talking about, who is saying that the sex traffickers are out to get, I'm sure sex trafficking absolutely exists. Tim Ballard, I don't think he actually has an interest in rooting that out of the world. But the one who sells everyone this story about these evil, sadistic sex traffickers in brothels who are keeping kids in chicken coops and locking them in cages and doing the most horrible things to them, and then takes these like soccer moms and actresses and hairdressers from Utah with no training and puts them in these situations where they were very rightly afraid of what could happen as they pretend to be at a sex parlor and then eventually having to betray them, and that getting back to the cartels or the sex traffickers, that they could be followed for the rest of their life for putting these people in prison. I would be terrified of that cost-benefit analysis for my own personal life, but they did it. They put their psyche and their lives on the line to go do this because they believed in the cause. What Krista just said is she has been more afraid of Tim Ballard and his good old boys and his mafia of people coming after her than she has been afraid of that entire scenario that I just explained that she had to do to save the sex trafficked kids.
Wow. Poor woman. Yeah. The script's been flipped, and that's Krista's testimony is not unique. I don't know how many people I've talked to, dozens at this point, that feel the same way, that they're more afraid of Tim's crazy than they are of actually the actual traffickers, drug dealers, child exploitation people. Tim's more dangerous.
Some of them didn't even leave their house.
I feel the same way.
A year, A year,
yeah.
If they're afraid to leave their house, is it because of sex traffickers that are out to get them that they put in jail? Or is it because of Tim Ballard? That should tell, and that's multiple of these women. That should really tell you something about Tim Ballard's character.
Yeah, somebody with a law enforcement background that sleeps after he exposed Tim. I think it was internally to OUR, got on the hit list or the bad list of Tim, double-crossed Tim. He, from then on, was afraid for his life, slept with a loaded gun under his pillow every night, probably still does to this day. That's crazy. I am not afraid of Tim. I don't think he has, I'm not afraid of him. And a lot of people are seeing through his BS. So I don't think that kind of fear is warranted. Seeing who he is, I believe he's a coward. I think that's been demonstrated over the last couple of years, the kind of stuff that comes out of his mouth and the stuff he says about his victims. Only a coward would say that kind of stuff. Not a real man. But he has also wielded this cult personality to make people afraid of him. That's one of his tools in his toolkit that he's worked through legal means by issuing bogus threats for lawsuits and things like that. But that's Chris was more afraid of him than the traffickers. That's echoed by so many other people that we've talked to.
What a statement.
So sad.
Okay. Rather than taking accountability or humbly making amends, Tim blamed his victims of attempting to ruin him without cause. Oh, sounds like what he just said about the church. Through his denials, Tim has divided families and friends, church members, and political allies. Any man who has left devastation and destruction in his wake and continues to vehemently lie and slander should be compelled to make recompense when he has refused to do so voluntarily. Tim has spent years in luxury, traveling in fame and power, living out his delusional and sexual fantasies, while people he has used to get there remain unprotected, afraid, financially ruined, and struggling to survive on multiple fronts. Mic drop. Whoa.
Yeah, and he not only does that with people that he's worked with, but he's done that to members of his own family. And that's a story that I hope will come out someday in the future. Yeah.
To those who naively excuse Tim's atrocious behavior as a matter of consent, of simply walking away, I am glad for your good fortune of never having been lured into an abusive relationship. When it comes to understanding the extent of predatory behaviors and grooming, the issue of consent is irrelevant. The very definition of grooming is the process of securing a target's trust and manipulating that to get them to agree to things they would never otherwise consider. That's what master manipulators do. They get you to conform to their beliefs and tactics, making the abuse seem normal and you seem absurd. Another mic drop. Mm-hmm. Did I know at the time that I was being manipulated or lied to? Of course not. Did I know he was doing the same thing with other women? Of course not. He had convinced me, and I now know he convinced each of them, that I was the only one he could trust to operate with him. I was the only one he could see things as clearly as they really were. I was the only one he knew would not permit him to cross boundaries. The only one who could be trusted to protect him, even from himself. I was the only one whose perspective he valued. I was the only one to whom he had felt a spiritual connection. I was the only one who could be as convincing as I was in the role I played. I was the only one who he was sure would not betray him. Tim made me believe I was so special to him with Academy Award-winning performances that I was the golden standard among operators called by God for the specific time. I still want to believe that I was. Maybe that calling was to eventually expose the patterns that have hurt countless people and to pressure him into his own recovery. This continued love bombing cemented in me a desire to do whatever was needed for the cause of saving children, since I believed I was a rare operator who could. As I now know, he was grooming others with the same praise and placing a heavy feeling of trust in their unique relationship. I worked closely with trafficked women who didn't know they were trafficked. Tim can tell you specifically how their pimps lay it on so thick, telling them that they have the option to leave, but they know well the repercussions if they try. Was it consensual? No. That's what grooming is. It's all of what takes place outside of and surrounding the very moment that you're acting in the situation you're being pressured for or prepared for. And same difference. It's the ideas, justification, lies, and threats that convince you it's worth anything/everything you're doing. It's the level of close connection he repeatedly insists you have. It's the trust he instills in you and the secrets he'll share so that you'll trust him back. It's the understanding of the fragility of the relationship and situation and ramifications that form a brainwashed bond to ensure that even when he tells you that you don't have to do what you're not comfortable with, with, you do. And you need to get comfortable with it real fast. It's the insistence that he trusts your spiritual level and intuition to guide him, effectively shifting to his victim a false power, security, and responsibility to protect the predatory and make sure that he is never hurt or betrayed by you or anyone else. It's the continued reminder that you're in a life or death situations which could compromise your personal safety as well as that of countless others. That's a lot. She's on fire. This is
wow.
Narcissism 101. And I am so grateful if anyone in the audience doesn't relate to any of this. Count your lucky stars. Go outside and skip a rock and play hopscotch and let the sun shine on your shoulders that you have never, if this doesn't make sense to you, you are a blessed angel from heaven, and I hope it never does. But for those of us who are like, yep, and then then they do that.
Yep.
Yeah, got it. Yep. So
yeah.
Again, Timmy Did What podcast is also to help you with your personal relationships too. Go ahead.
Yeah. We multitask here. So can you see now how and why Tim is attacking Krista so viciously? Like, this is why. She has him pegged. She has all the stories and his operating tactics and his grooming tactics nailed in black and white for everybody to see. And this is why Tim is deathly afraid of Krista Casey taking the stand, of Celeste Boris taking the stand, Kira Lynch, Mary Bree Ryder, Sasha. If any of these women take the stand in a trial in front of a jury, they will fuck him up. He will be done. And so they cannot allow that to happen, which is why Tim and his lawyers fought so hard and ultimately succeeded in getting Celeste's case dismissed over technicality to avoid this kind of testimony being presented in front of a jury. Because he will be done. He will be done.
He will be pegged, like you said. He is absolutely fucked up the ass, pegged to the wall. Okay. It's a very professional podcast that we run here. Thank you guys for your donations. If you guys want to keep supporting the show and our professionality, links are down below. We love you so much. Thanks for the super chats today too, guys. Okay. Elizabeth Smart has reported that occasionally people will slide in comments to her such as, "You and I both know you could have left if you wanted to." Go to hell, whoever says that. God. Anyway, these insinuations are tormenting for victims of abuse or anyone thrust into a situation to have to prove themselves. Nobody deserves for me to explain the extent of what I endured so that they can be judge and jury. Only me and my God can sort this out mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I understand now. It could take the rest of my life to process and understand the lasting effects. People who have never experienced what I have experienced have no place to weigh in on the credibility of my pain. This is not about consent. Consent means getting what you signed up for. This battle is about not getting what you signed up for. This is about having taken unimaginable risks and made enormous sacrifices, not for truth and freedom, but for lies. This is about being conned, gaslighted, and manipulated into believing we were doing something noble when we were doing little more than providing a stick man and ego boost. Oh, power grab and endless well to satisfy his selfish fantasies. High five, girlfriend. This is about requiring Tim to take accountability for his wrongdoings and to stop profiting by exploiting us and others. Okay, so that is her introduction. And then she goes into her entire history with Tim Ballard that is laid out and off story after story that we can get into. Really depends on Ryan if you have time and how your reading voice is doing, because mine is getting a little weak.
Yeah, I probably don't have the time to go through all of that, and I don't have my monitor hooked up, so I can't see the text good enough to read it on my little screen there. But if you wanted to continue, you could go through all of it, so it's in the public record. We're looking at probably 10 plus pages.
Right? All right, I will read it until my voice gives out, because we started so early today, and
Yeah.
All right, I'll read it, and then when you need to run, just let me know.
Okay. I probably should go now then, if this is a good spot to go. But this has been awesome. Like, in a depressing way, like, these women are absolutely amazing for coming forward. Like, again, they have more courage in their peaky figure than Tim has in his whole body. And that should be pretty apparent as these stories come out. So
Yeah. Thanks for doing this with me, Ryan. Thanks for those final words. These women are heroes to me. And if you can, always leave a comment supporting them, telling them that you are rooting for them, and know that this battle is long, but you're in support. So best you can do to leave comments. Much appreciated. And thank you, Ryan. All right. I guess I'll let you go. You're out of here, kid.
All right. Take away.
All right. So,
all right. Thanks.
Now that we've got the best thing that ever happened to the Timmy Did What podcast, you guys just have me. All right. So this is the detailed list of all the different things that Krista went through that we will be putting here into the public record. So buckle in. Okay, my introduction to ops. I first met Tim Ballard while working on a film project in 2020, during which he spoke about the power of prayer. I left that day a strengthened testimony of prayer and determination to pray more specifically with greater faith. A year later, I was working on set again with Tim. He remembered me from our previous encounter and said, "What's your story?" I gave him some milestones of my personal journey, including how I had returned from living in Asia and divorced after my husband had fully relapsed into sex addiction. This is me speaking. Tim then realized that as a sex addict himself, I would feel very comfortable with connecting with him in the couple's ruse. No, that's not what happened. But you can see how he's seeing perhaps a rebuilt woman, but nonetheless somebody wounded that he could jump on like a lion on the Sahara. That's kind of what I'm getting from this introduction. I believe Krista, just for background, she does hair and makeup, and she's going to go into how she helped him put on some tattoos in a second. So she's with him as he's, getting his body and stuff together. Sex addiction. Tim then showed me a video with a lady he had just rescued from Thailand and said that because we're not sex addicts, a line that I kept on replay in my mind every time that I doubted, they could go into dark places and fight those who propagate the very filth that had caused me such devastation. Very interesting comments from the crowd. That's the grooming had begun. I felt like he was literally fighting on my behalf. When filming was complete, he said, "You're a hair and makeup artist. Can you do tattoos?" I told him I could, and he asked me if I could also bleach his hair platinum to create a cool SoCal look. He explained he was going on a mission with a fake girlfriend in the following week and needed help creating their costumes. Then suggested I could help her with her disguise as well. She was a police officer and needed some feminine refinement, her makeup done, and help with her hair. Tim suggested it would be great if I could go down to Mexico with him to keep the tattoos looking fresh, because sometimes on missions, they start to fade, and then it puts him in real danger, or great danger. He looked at David, who had come on set with Tim, and said, "Remember that when we were on the op and my tat started to fade? That's so scary." That was scary. He asked for my number, if I had a valid passport, and if I would be available Saturday to get him ready. He said they have the supplies and everything already. Since he had an appointment with another hair and makeup artist, he would call her off and get the products from her so I could apply them. He said the other artist lined up didn't have a valid passport, and because of COVID's delays, it was almost impossible for her to renew, so she wasn't able to travel with him. And then we have a text message there explaining that situation. He later texted to work out details for meeting up to apply his tats and bleach his hair. He asked if I would ever consider going out as an operator, mentioning the possibility of having me pose as his girlfriend and testing my comfortability with that. He said he thought I would be really good, which means he finds her attractive, and she is an attractive lady. Okay. Thought I would be really good, and it would make things easier for him because he wasn't really attracted to his other operator and how that could throw off the operations because their relationship isn't as believable. He told me about an operation where he was coupled with a burly female Mexican and had to abandon the operation entirely because he couldn't even fake it with her. This is why the whole thing with we have to develop chemistry, because I don't want it to be like the time when I was paired up with a burly Mexican police officer who I didn't actually want to engage in sexual activities with. I couldn't fake it. He just couldn't do it. Well, guess what? There are a lot of undercover operators. There's a lot of actors out there in the world. You do the job that you're assigned to do, or you don't do it. And as I've said many times in this podcast, Tim, you're not the guy. Tim, it's really cool. Sometimes I say that about myself, I'm not the best podcaster or, short form content creator in the world. I don't articulate myself that great. Sometimes I say to myself, Carah, maybe you're not the girl for this. And I let my audience decide that. And if they tune in, then they tune in. And if they don't, then I'll know that I'm not the girl for it. But I'm no Candace Owens. I'm just picking those popular podcasts in the world right now. You know what? I'm not always the girl who can do the greatest thing. Tim, you're not always the guy. You're not the Rambo. You're not the guy. If you can't pretend with your burly female operator, you're not the guy. Okay? You wish you were, but you're not. Okay? Couldn't even fake it with her. Then he writes about the operation, and then she writes, I told Tim I wasn't sure if I could play the part of not knowing what it would require of me, how safe it would be, how it might affect me mentally, what I would need to say and do to keep our cover and not screw it up, etc. Tim assured me there wasn't anything to worry about, as he would cover for me and do all of the talking. Bullshit. It was best for me to be the quiet, reserved cock blocker. Can't believe I'm reading that word in a court document. Is that weird? Here we are. That would be my principal role. Protect Tim at all costs. I often told people I was essentially Tim's bodyguard with the purpose of protecting both him and Catherine via protecting their relationship from sex workers, which I believed I could do well because I'm firm in my boundaries, integrity, and intent. I was extremely excited about being given the trust and chance to participate in something I felt passionate about and could make such a direct impact, but I was very hesitant about the role. What a heavy responsibility for me to do things just right with our lives on the line with no experience in how traffickers work or what exactly I was supposed to do and how that might affect me in the long run. I told him I was willing but unsure if I was the right fit. He said we would start out super slowly, just holding hands around town and such to see if I felt comfortable. That seems innocuous enough. I could handle that. Grooming alert. Boo-doo-doo-doo. You've got grooming. Tim asked me to pray about it and see if it was something I felt good about and that we would talk more in detail on Saturday. I had many questions, but couldn't believe the opportunity. Later that week, Tim told me he knew when we were first speaking that he had received the divine impression that he was supposed to ask me about being an operator. Spiritual manipulation. Logging on to spiritualmanipulation.com. This is the same guy who had strengthened my faith in prayer, and I easily trusted he could have received that revelation from God, and I believed it myself. My close friend reaffirmed that I was absolutely perfect for this role, saying of my personality type that we are the ones who want to save the world and don't want anyone to know about it. Whew. We met up in an OUR office that Saturday and were initially with Coop and a few others who had brought in supplies and Tim's wardrobe for the op. The others eventually left me and Tim alone. It's where things go bad. As I worked on his disguise, and he seemed genuinely interested in knowing how I felt about life, the gospel, my situation being single, and my perception of him and the work he does. So we're crossing all kinds of boundaries. Tim inquired about my sexuality in light of my spirituality. He was especially curious how I, as an active member of my church, would be going in on these missions and playing the part. We had lengthy discussions about what actions would be justified by God in this work, though. in this work. Throughout the afternoon and evening, he was impressed that I got it and was willing to do whatever was required for the cause, and still feel strongly that it would be in keeping with my standards, since my highest standard is to sacrifice everything necessary for the Lord and his purpose. And I could conceive of no greater purpose than to free God's children in captivity. I was increasingly willing to participate without question of personal cost. Comments from the crowd. I mean, okay. I got a little bit there of he's your boss. Technically, you are, I don't know if he was at the CEO level at that time, but he's your boss. And Tim completely skirts around all normal workplace sexual harassment rules to grow in an intimate sexual chemistry and bond as the baseline, and then further and further pushes that envelope. This is, again, similar testimony that a lot of the women have gone through. Okay. For the next several hours as I worked, Tim began to tell me more about the tactics they used to keep their cover on operations. I had been aware of his close association with Elder Ballard, so it seemed natural when he told me they met on a regular basis to receive blessings and to discuss OUR proceedings. Tim told me of the time he told Catherine he couldn't go on ops anymore, that the thought of descending into the filth made him sick. Good for you, Tim. Then he received revelation of using a girlfriend relationship, later deemed a couple's ruse, as a cover. According to Tim, he presented the plan to Elder Ballard, who thought it was brilliant and specifically sanctioned the strategy. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? From the very beginning, full screen. Carah's predictions circa 2023, when that statement came out from the church denouncing Tim Ballard, friendship with M. Russell Ballard, senior apostle in the Quorum of the 12, the Mormon Church. No longer friends with this guy. And part of the reason he was denounced was for morally, I always forget the word, morally dubious behavior, something along those lines. Morally unacceptable behavior. There you go. And I put 2 and 2 together, and I thought, Tim Ballard seems like the kind of guy who would invoke the name of God for sure. Why wouldn't he invoke and utilize the name of a living, prophet of God over here in the form of his bestest bud, M. Russell Ballard? The guy's on death's door. Like, he's going to know or care. He's not paying attention. So, yeah, I was like, morally unacceptable behavior, no longer friends. Did you say that he sanctioned this so that you could get women in the sack? Bare minimum. There's also allegations that go all the way to talk in my Mormon Stories episode, especially a couple months ago, where after Tim had allegedly raped one of his operators, he called up Elder Ballard, and Elder Ballard said, just try to follow the rules a little bit better next time. Didn't report it to the authorities, didn't remove him from the church at that time, didn't have any consequences for Tim, but told him to obey the rules better next time, son. That's what kind of relationship that they had. So it's very interesting getting Chris's take on how she was manipulated as a member of the church into believing Tim's lies with this kind of authority as well. It's been coming. I've been having my eye on the ball ever since, and this is what all the allegations have all led to, is that prophetic authority is also helping with this manipulation. And I really hope when this gets played out in court, I really hope that the lawyers, and I really hope that the jury, and I really hope that the judge get how narcissists act. I hope that, it's not against the law to be a narcissist, but it is against the law to do all these things. I hope that the women get justice and they understand the cult-like mentality that all this is framed under, Okay. Would have come from an apostle of the Lord. I asked various questions about what my role would require. Would I need to drink alcohol, which I had never done? No. Tim said he never has to drink. He's really good at faking it, and told me some of his tricks. Would I have to swear, which I also didn't do? Yes, I could practice it. That evening, Tim asked me if I had practiced saying the F word in the mirror. What was my physical risk? Would I ever be in situations alone with traffickers, or where another man would be expecting me to be sexual with him? Tim responded that our rules were to protect each other from exactly that. So we would only need to be sexual with each other and only to the extent necessary to the situation. Of course, we would abide by strict standards and need to be able to both connect and trust each other. Tim confided in me many secrets, like that he had just gotten a full body wax for the first time and asked if I ever had, saying it's so much more appealing and wishes Catherine would. Catherine is a bush kind of lady. No hate, no shade on that. But now we have to know that. Tim, protect your wife's privacy. I shouldn't know that your wife has a bush. Okay. He told me going shopping. Obviously, he's also comparing his sex life with his wife. There's also other videos of him that have been leaked that we've covered on this channel about him pressuring his wife to take off her garments so they can snuggle naked, which I recommend. But you can see that he's very sexually frustrated in his marriage because Catherine's a little bit more of the prudish type of Mormon, you can tell, and he wants to go out living a little bit more of a wild life, as it is alleged. So, crossing many boundaries, crossing many lines, obviously. He told me to go shopping and get sexy clothes so we could test it out this next week if we got the chance. We were in frequent contact through the weekend. He asked me to send shots of sexy clothes I got and screenshot tattoos and placement I was considering, just for the job. I just need to see you in that lingerie, just for the job. Yep. I'm the boss. I gotta approve that I like the way that your cleavage looks in that lingerie. Thumbs up. Plans changed, and I was asked to leave Monday instead. This would give us more time to practice. Tim had asked if I had any concerns and told him I had plenty, so we planned to discuss them while we were down in Mexico. He picked me up from the airport in Mexico City, along with a driver who I was assured only spoke Spanish, so we could speak openly and confidentiality, you know what I mean, confidentially on our long drive to the home where we would be staying that first night. I shared both my written and mental list of questions. Wow, they would have been fucked if that guy was bilingual. Oh man, they would have, what a risk. Whoa, somebody who picks up American tourists, if he spoke any English whatsoever and could hear their plans and could probably have some kind of blackmail extortion thing if he tipped off the sex traffickers that they were about to go bust. He could have a payday. Good thing he didn't have Duolingo. The greatest concern for Catherine was and how this worked with their relationship, since the whole point of going in as a pretend couple was to safeguard his real relationship with his wife by preventing him from having to do heinous acts with victims of trafficking. I wanted to know how he had been able to keep emotionally stable and not blur their relationships. He didn't. Anyway, he assured me that this was the best thing he could do for his relationship. Catherine knew it too. No, she didn't. That she helped choose me. He had said that they always decide together who should go on these operations. No, they didn't. You're forgetting about Janet Reston, your psychic. She also helped pick out your new victims. Who fits the part as a legitimate partner for him with the right look, height, and spirit. No stocky Mexican law enforcement can hold a candle to the right look, height, and spirit in a Utah makeup artist. Tim, you just have these tactics that real law enforcement are begging to get a hold of. That's how you do it. That's how you crack down criminals. The right look, light. I can't speak. The right look, height, and spirit is what counts. He said he had shown Catherine my picture and she felt strongly about me, agreeing I was the one. What was going on in Catherine's head? As for making sure the role play doesn't turn into real play, Tim said there were strict rules. No kissing on the lips because that makes it too difficult not to not create real attachment. No undressing or touching private parts. No texting, calling, or continuation of the role outside of the ops. These stated standards helped me feel so safe about keeping the distinction, and I was thrilled to know that he took this seriously for my protection as well. Apparently, a previous operator had insisted on calling him and trying to see him after the op because she got too connected and couldn't let him go. You know, I'm a little bit of a narcissist too, and it's neither here nor there that I do like to tell everyone out there watching this show that I want you to be careful watching the Carah Burrell YouTube channel and the Timmy Did What podcast, because you might get too attached and fall in love with me. And it's going to be kind of hard to watch any other YouTube channel after this. So yeah, that's how narcissists talk. Sorry. That's, you know, I've had other people watch this show and they just became obsessed. Like, you in love with me? I'm sorry. I gotta have people who understand the boundaries. Anyway, sorry. Ryan's not here, so I get to make lots of jokes. Also, if you want your comment read on screen, I don't have the ability to distract from, when Ryan's talking, and I can like kind of read the comments and pick them out. But if you want your comment read, if you think it's really special and should be highlighted, super chats are great for that. Okay, continuing. Apparently, a previous operator had insisted on calling him and trying to see him after the op because she got too connected and couldn't let him go. He adamantly reminded her that they weren't in a real relationship. He couldn't work with her anymore after that. He told me about how he and another female operator, a big-time actress, were in a situation where they were staying with the trafficker who brought into their bedroom 10 to 12 minors to dance for them and sex play. To avoid the minors, this actress and Tim lied on the bed, pretending to make out and have sex, complete with fake orgasms and a shower afterwards, to convince the trafficker they had actually had sex. After playing the role, the woman was so legitimately horny that she had insisted on kissing him on the mouth, saying it was not fair to get her so worked up and then leave her hanging. No. I understand, when two people are rolling in the sheets and you want to have a completion to that exercise. I get it. Under no circumstances could any mentally sane person want to finish and have some kind of completion when there is a house of sex trafficked minors downstairs, that the reason you're rolling in the sheets is distract yourself from the living hell that has just been presented before you. Timothy Blaine Ballard, what stories are you making up here? If that actually happened, that person should probably be in an insane asylum. That person is not mentally healthy. You should not mix your arousal with that kind of role. I don't know. I've never been on operations like that, but that seems like you're an actual crazy person, and I'm scared that you are anywhere around children. There's a bunch of kids that came over for us to molest and dance for us. It makes me really hot and horny. I need to finish. I don't like it. I'm scared. Thank you, raccoons. Stop talking about me on live streams, Carah. To be honest, nobody has even crossed the boundaries of what I would consider unhealthy in my YouTube audience. So keep buying that merch. And there's a funny story there. Anyway, okay. Back to the non-funny story. Jeez. How much can I swear on my own podcast? Ugh, this is icking me out. Tim was furious and reminded her of her place. Because of that, he could never work with her again. She was so upset at not being included in future ops. The following year, Tim told me he was considering having that operator come on another op with us, and ultimately did, because she now has a boyfriend and is promising she's in a more stable place, wanted to prove she could handle it now, and pled for another shot. Okay. The way Tim verbally attacked previous operators and people who betrayed him, which meant anyone who stood up to him, including the CEO, other directors, or women who dared question him on ops, was a regular lesson on how I was expected to behave in order to work with him, and I took note. Initially, the expectations of our conduct were not printed, but Tim took video of us after the op for both of our protection. He had learned this the hard way because he had been accused in the past of acting inappropriately. Tim recorded that I had treated him appropriately and with respect, and asked me whether he had done the same. In time, Coop wrote out and asked for signatures, calling it a couples ruse agreement. Noticed Tim's signature was not required. And there we have the couples ruse agreement of how they are to infiltrate trafficking and criminal networks. Again, she makes a great point earlier where when you're a victim of trafficking and you have a pimp, you could leave at any time. Like most people who are being abused, they don't really realize it. Like people who are being sexually assaulted or victims of rape, a lot of times you don't realize what is the severity of what is happening when you're in it, partially for your own, cognitive dissonance and your own mental security. It's not just, oh, this is terrible and I'm leaving immediately right now. There's a lot of grooming that goes into it. And so I see this as another very manipulative tactic that Tim is using, that why would they say on video that everything was kosher, everything was fine if I actually abused them and groomed them? Because they didn't know they were being trafficked. And if you knew the first thing about sex trafficking, as you purport to do as the leader of the world's #1 anti-sex trafficking organization, Tim Ballard, you should know how grooming and manipulation works. You are not after in this fight for anything good. You are in it for your own pocketbook and self-aggrandizement. You do not care about how victims become victims and get out of victimhood. I hate you, Tim. Continuing. Okay. We arrived at the home of a wealthy politician where we would finish getting ready and stay the night. Tim had attended to most of my concerns, and now it was his turn. He told me how risky this whole situation is, more than just my life would be in danger, which he didn't seem to take seriously. And in time, it would be a little more than a joking conversation about how we would die. And that, in fact, he said he thought dying on an operation would be a cool way to go. Mother with 4 kids at home. That'd be so fun if we died because I didn't take your safety seriously. That'd be rad. He was taking a very serious risk by bringing me along. I thought she was the one, though. Okay, I thought that God told her for you to take her. He told me how important it was that I never say anything about what we were doing because I could literally ruin him. Well, apparently you can't, because he still is alive. Nobody can ruin him. He seemed distressed as he asked, can you imagine what the response would be if you told people I went on an op with Tim and he was all over me or anything like that? I repeatedly assured Tim I would never say anything. He expounded that if I ever talked about what we were doing, he would have to deny it. Interesting. Wellity. I told him I understood. Tim continued talking about how it would appear to people who wouldn't understand, and I fervently agreed it could easily be misconstrued. Tim drilled into my mind that we would have to use every resource he had to fight anything negative I might say about him, and that, of course, he would be sided with. I knew that. It didn't matter. I was resolved that I would never, ever betray him. By this time, my heart was aching at the thought and my eyes welled with tears. I told him I could never, ever say anything that would hurt you or the cause. That would be sacrificing everything I believe in, everything important to me about my own good character and all the good that OUR had done. I would be sacrificing the lives of innocent victims that I am willing to lay my life on the line to rescue. That would be so devastating to me personally that I would rather die than falsely accuse him. That's a very good point and statement. That's what I've said from the beginning too, guys. Like, these are not some cabal of leftists who are trying to take Tim down because they don't want to expose sex trafficking because they love sex trafficking. It's their favorite thing. Tim, you're more of that guy. You don't want to expose the Epstein files and your best is Bud Trump. Like, you're the guy who doesn't want to expose sex trafficking. But beside the point, these women, people who have sacrificed everything, they were willing to put up with all of this until the very end. Okay. Continuing. Tim commended me, saying he had no doubt that I was sincere and trustworthy. I trusted him too, just by virtue of him being Tim Ballard. Too many have said that statement. I only began to question Tim's claims when he needed constant reassurance that we weren't doing anything wrong. Isn't that interesting? I only began to question Tim's claims when he needed consistent reassurance that we weren't doing anything wrong. This is very crazy. At the time, he was still seemingly concerned about compromising the temple covenants he made with his wife. I found it extremely odd that he worried so frequently about whether we were acting appropriately and specifically asked me to confirm that we were in the right and playing our roles. He worried that he could not cheat on Catherine. His concern caused me, a natural comforter, to engage regularly in this pattern of conversation. And then I think this is conversation that she had with him where she said, "You received the idea of going in as a couple by revelation and immediately knew it as the answer you'd been seeking, right? It was confirmed by Elder Ballard, right? And by going undercover as partners, we're protecting each other's chastity as well as preventing those we engage with from having to perform sexual acts, right? Your wife was just as enthusiastic about this ingenious way to protect you, right? We were carefully selected to save lives in a unique way that God had trusted us to do, right? It's a righteous cause and calling that came directly from heaven, right? Then we have no reason to be concerned. We can remain in the peace and faith that we have been and will be guided by the Lord." Ooh, she was in the Kool-Aid, wasn't she? What I was understanding then, what I didn't understand then, was the real reason for Tim's constant concern and need for reassurance. He was behaving with impure intent. He used me to comfort him and regularly reaffirm the righteousness of our roles and behavior. Doing so kept me logged in a belief that God condoned anything we needed to do to gain trust of human traffickers and other dangerous or evil people while simultaneously keeping ourselves safe physically and spiritually. While I see how all of that could be true at times and scripturally, spiritually justified, I don't believe it is in Tim's case. During the past couple of years, I have witnessed firsthand Tim's degeneration into moral decay, mental illness, and harm to himself and countless others. Over the course of many ops, Tim touched me repeatedly, trying to create a sexual connection by the words he spoke and the way he touched. He was constantly feeling me out and trying to turn me on as well. Tim frequently asked about my sex life, what most arouses me, whether I masturbate, what I'm willing to do with my boyfriend, etc. Sorry. I throw up there. Tim also admitted to some jealousy about guys I dated and feeling rejected when I didn't respond to his touch as expected. Most of these touches were unnecessary other than to, quote, create chemistry because we weren't with real traffickers or in settings trying to fool anyone. It was often while we were traveling alone, staying in a private place. Tim wanted to get his rocks off. Tim wanted another girlfriend. He wanted a situation. He wanted to create a alternate reality that he could enter into and he could still keep his covenants to his wife. And then he could go enter into this badass place where he would have no consequences and he could touch women on the inside of their vagina with his penis so that he could get all of those, wild oats that young men who are not Mormon get to experience. He missed out on it, but he's still able to revisit his youth, and all of the people like Paul Hutchinson and all the other operators, they get to actually have sex with prostitutes in their free time. But what about me, Tim Ballard? I want to have sex with prostitutes, and I want to hire attractive women who comfort me that I'm doing the right thing and keep my covenants to my wife. I want to be able to have all of those things inside of the paradigm that I have created. And I'm going to bring as many victims in as possible. And scene. Thanks, Tim. Okay, you played the role. Now go to jail. Okay. So you can tell Tim, I've gotten some text messages from men like this before. You know it. You've seen it, guys. He writes, how's your boyfriend? Progress? And she writes back, not my boyfriend, but he's a good guy. And then he writes, it's probably so hard having to compare every guy now with Brian Black, that sexy beast. Hey, how's your boyfriend? Is it going good? It's probably really hard to compare him to me and all of the sexiness that I have. Do you want to talk about how sexy I am? That's him giving an invitation to a woman saying like, do you want to remember our sexual connection? Oh yeah. Like you want to talk about your boyfriend. Sorry. You're a beta. You're a loser. Tim, just back away from the phone. The only way that these women, you even possibly think that you have a chance with women so out of your league, is to create an entire narrative and waste millions of dollars just so that you can get compliments and potentially hit on back with attractive hairstylists. They don't want you, and thousands of children and people and dollars. I didn't explain that very well, but you know what I mean. Carah, you're not the podcaster. Carah, you're not the Candace Owens. You can't articulate yourself. But this is who Tim is. All right, I'm going on. Hi, I'm going to start bugging you every day as we prep to make sure we're all connected. Any concerns, thoughts, ideas? Hi, I'm horny. I'm going to start sexting you every day, and I need you to respond with me. This is Carah talking, with pictures of your lingerie and being in character. We're getting in character now. My wife, she is really not taking off her garments the way that I like, and I want a Brazilian wax, and I want some nudes. Catherine's not obliging, so I'm hitting up my couples roots partner for that. Any questions, comments, concerns? We good? Tim spoke often about the disconnect in his relationship with Catherine, Tim's wife. And I became a crutch for him to confide in and offer advice. It was often in regards to his sex life and wanting her to think more openly and be more exploratory. She was apparently not willing to wax or have oral sex, and I'm really good, he said. I shouldn't know these things. This is a private matter. Tim frequently asked with bewilderment, "Why are you still single?" On the first mission, he said, "If anything happened to Catherine, I'd marry you." He really pressed to know if I would feel the same. I told him, "We're not going to have this conversation. My wife died, who I love so much. I would marry you. Would you marry me too?" Shut up. No. On another occasion, almost a year later, he said, "If I was single, I would marry you." One of the donors with us on a separate trip mentioned that he had said this about the Ukrainian operator as well. And clearly, Tim said it to redacted, then denied it and made horrible accusations about her wanting to marry him. There was no care or training of operators during the missions, not before, not after. I would arrive home useless for my kids and family and work until I could process what had just happened. When I broke my foot on a training in Budapest and was not able to go on ops for a while, I lost that revenue stream as well as the ability to run my home and business. Being unable to walk was financially devastating. There were many other times of team disorganization and neglect, including when another female operator and I were left at a large home in Mexico all night, unprotected and forgotten by anyone else on the team. She left the next day, but still no one came for me. Fortunately, Tim and a couple others stopped back at the house to grab something forgotten. They were completely surprised that I was still there. That's horrible. On the ops, I was an afterthought. Like I wasn't really supposed to be there. I felt like I was risking and sacrificing for something that was becoming clearly about creating a story and not about putting together strategies to rescue. Eventually, Tim began to say our responsibility was to be storytellers, and man, could he spin a story up. Go back to the deposition with John Lyons and how Tim specifically said that when he comes back to OUR in 2019, that their job is to be storytellers, and the focus is not on rescuing the kids. Corroborated right there. No one seems to need or care about the intel we gathered. My experiences and perspective didn't have a landing place. No one would know who I had spoken with in the places we visited or that I had seen and heard. I didn't know if any of our efforts or the supposedly valuable information we gained had led to anything worthwhile. Tim spent very little time explaining the missions, targets, or victims, and an excess amount of time discussing all things sexual. Would you look at that, folks? Would you... You didn't what? Because there's other operations where they've talked about like Tim would literally Google Maps. Hey guys, I got our secret intel information. Google Maps in the Dominican Republic or wherever, bars in the local area. Here guys, everyone take this out. Keep it secret. We're going to meet at this location and see if we can ask anybody if they know where any sex kids are. And super secret. I used to work for the CIA, so this is our super secret website we go to called Google Maps. And that's really heartbreaking that a lot of these women did put their lives on the line, sacrifice all this time away from their families. And there's no reporting up. Like they come back and they're like, who do I talk to? Like, where do we download all this information? I'm sure if you're part of a real law enforcement operation, you have ways to get that information and disseminate it to your agency so that they can follow up on leads. Not concerned about that. All things sexual. Sexual. That's what Tim was really interested in. Okay. I never really knew what we had actually accomplished other than achieving chemistry and being convincing to usually no one in particular. Nailed it. Tim also became increasingly sexual, perverse, and aggressive. Ooh. At least twice, I was afraid when he was on an op of me and dry humping on a bed. We were alone in a hotel room the first time he did this, after which he went into the bathroom and masturbated. On another occasion, I was scared and unable to tell him he had become aggressive, grinding determinately to come. When I tried to move away, he pulled me back under him. Ooh. Ew, no, God. As we were preparing for an operation and staying in Miami, Tim wanted time to practice and reconnect since it's been a while. One evening, he became demeaning and insisted that I meet him at the hot tub. Oh, well, yeah, this part. This is the taint part. I don't really know what a taint is, but I feel like that's the right word. Okay. One evening, he became demeaning and insisted I meet him at the hot tub. I met him there late at night alone when I would rather have gone to bed, but knew he would be upset if I refused. Tim began telling me all about the tantric massage that he and another operator experienced in California. He said she had learned a lot and was excited about what she could do with it in her marriage. Tim had learned some techniques in tantric that he wanted to show me. He said, "I'm going to do something. I promise I won't touch you. Trust me." He moved his hand up between my legs and pressed his finger just behind my vagina, tapping firmly 6 times, which he explained awakens the sexual chakras or something of that effect. Okay. He frequently talked about doing tantric massage with him and other more intense practices. More intense than tapping a taint? No. Oh, you mean rape? Oh, those more intense practices? Shut the fuck up. That we had done previously to level up our game, insisting that undercover work was a perishable skill. It's kind of just like if you're dating somebody in the normal world, he just doesn't know how to I haven't seen you in a while. Let's catch up and have a conversation. And then we'll head to the bedroom and just, make out a little bit and see where things go. Doesn't he know how to date somebody? He's like, no, it's a perishable skill. I have to have you go to a tantric massage. I need you to wax. I need you to send me all these pics of yourself nude. And then and only then can we save the sex trafficked kids. Maybe you just want a consensual girlfriend, though. Maybe you just want Catherine to go on these missions with you. Maybe you want to go on these rescue missions and you want to go into these brothels and you also want to get your rocks off at the same time and live a non-Mormon life that you never got to lead while still being the hero of the story. Maybe that's really what you want, Tim. You can't do it without victimizing hundreds of people. Maybe that's how your brain works. For me, I'm keeping a trash can close by so I can keep vomiting when I need to keep reading this. Tim writes to her, "We can sleep on the plane. So what time do I get to your house? Tantric massage, Florida. This is the kind of thing I was telling you about. Let me know what you think." This practical exercise may be a good fit to prep for UC. Check it out and check your gut on it and let me know. She writes, "And I can't quite tell what the tantric experience is like from the site, but as long as it keeps everything within our boundaries, I'd go for it. Let's talk about Mona experience. Can you talk? Maybe very helpful for us. I'll let you explain. Let me explain it." So the answer is pretty much no, but what are our boundaries? He's asking somebody who is subordinate under him, what are the boundaries? Get real. What we sign up to do. No kissing on lips, no touching privates. Have you signed yet? What are you talking about? All the fun stuff? Just kidding. Sexual harassment in the workplace is what that's called. No, Tim. Nope. He began drinking regularly on ops, justifying oral sex, nudity, and bed sharing with each other, creating situations precarious enough that he could vehemently argue these actions were necessary to accomplish the mission and retrieve information that would make all the difference in saving countless lives. Tim kept saying, I don't want to breeze past the justifying oral sex, but I called it. Go listen back to my podcast in 2023. Can I just brag for a sec? I know this is about the victims right now, but I just have to say, Called it. We didn't know any of the details quite yet, but I remember that Ward Radio, it was Cardin Ellis and the different douche bros, and they were all making an episode about Tim Ballard. And I, as a sneaky girl, went into my alternate YouTube account and I paid for a super chat so that they would read it out on air and have to answer for it. And they just could not believe that Tim Ballard was guilty of anything. There's probably just a bunch of dumb lying bitches who are all trying to take down the church. Tim's still a great innocent guy. And I wrote into my super chat and I said, what if he was forcing women to, let's say, practice oral sex with him to be able to save sex trafficked kids? And that's like the lie that he said. I said something to that effect. And the gah and aghastness of Ward Radio's cast of clown car of characters that I have never seen before or since. Cardin could not believe it. He was like, that would never happen. Like, you would be so evil. You wouldn't even be able to like walk out of your door every day. You couldn't even like hold your head high if you were like convincing women to give you head because you need to save sex trafficked kids. Like, nobody would do that. And I said, wait, Carah, just wait. Wait, and you will be proven true. And I've been proven true ever since, including this day, January 29th, 2026. Stick with the nuancehoe. I see it. I see it. Okay. Tim kept saying we need, I need to put this not on full screen for all of you people to read it with me. Tim kept saying we needed a more intensive training. I don't like the way that sounds. Than we had done before, and said Coop had made all the plans so that Tim and I would both be surprised. He had scheduled a trip to Florida for this special training where we would be meeting with a Ukrainian operator, first routed through New York for a surprise appointment, just the two of us. Tim had been trying to arrange for a sexual massage for quite some time and was infuriated. I'm sorry, I'm taking in a lot of air. Infuriated when our flight was canceled and could not be rebooked, even on another airline, to get us there in time for the appointment. One thing you guys need to know about Tim Ballard is he loves his happy endings in massage parlors. I've heard some stories too of different Mormon men of varying degrees of devoutness to the church, you could say, who they love a sensual massage that ends with paying a little extra for some sex work and tugging at the old one-eyed monster. That is what I've heard. Tim is a big fan of those kinds of massages. That is an allegation, but here we have in this court document further corroborating the information that I have heard. Mike arranged for a midnight flight direct to Florida instead, thankfully skipping JFK. So Tim and Coop spent hours scoring Salt Lake City for a place we could get a sexual massage that day. When the first place failed, Tim yelled at Coop over the phone to find something. Coop drove us from place to place, but they were full. Tim was relentless, offering women at the desk up to $500 to get us a room. He finally found a sketchy massage place where he was demanding enough that the therapist allowed us to squish together onto a single massage bed so she could rub us both at the same time. Tim was persistent about asking her if she could do a Nuru massage. Perverts in the chat, you know who you are. Do you guys know what a Nuru massage is? I don't know what it is. Or bring in someone who could. And he tried to get her involved in any sexual talk he could elicit. She did offer him a hand job if he wanted. $500 is not enough. He asked her if she ever got sexy with her clients and teased her about taking off her shirt. Tim kept acting like this was part of a training designed by Coop, and they were handing me mini sessions to accomplish. This time on the bed, Tim gave me the assignment to get the massage therapist to strip down for us. I refused as if he was joking. He was not. That seemed criminal to ask of an innocent bystander to our training. Yeah. I feel like there's a whole discussion about morality in Mormonism and how people like this think coming in here. It says, when we finally left before Tim was ready to, but because we now had limited time before our flight, I called him out about asking me to corrupt her. He shot back, she's anything but innocent. She was willing to give me a hand job. I don't feel like that's how it works. It's just like one consensual act at a time, kind of. But like even that, don't do that, because you know what? She's gonna go to jail. So just maybe don't ask her to do that. Maybe you fight to get like the sex, work laws, fixed in your state so that people who do want to make their money from, sex work, that they can have all the legal protections of anyone who does any other kind of work instead of being put into, skeezy little massage parlor and brothels for men to come in and, exploit them like that. Like, they didn't really sign up for that and they're trying to earn a little extra money. But, if they had better protections in place and laws in the state of Utah, that would be much better. But, Tim, you're not that kind of guy. You're not looking for that. You're just, I don't know, it's morally dubious all around. He spoke disparagingly about me when Coop picked us up, telling him I had gone soft, which is what Tim had to do. Womp womp. For the remainder of the training trip, Tim didn't have much of anything to say to me, including having me participate in inner further training, which was supposedly the whole point of the trip. I didn't participate in anything essential or unique and spent those Florida days primarily alone. Tim specifically left behind at the house rather than taking me to visit Tony Robbins as promised. It was clearly my punishment for pushing back on and questioning his instructions. I told Coop about the incident with the massage therapist, and he was definitely very concerned, but there were no repercussions for Tim. Classic. I now see many contradictions between how Tim protected himself with little concern for me and others, while creating in me a determination to risk everything to protect him and us as a partnership in OUR. This is interesting. So she says, it's ironic that he claimed it took him a while to detox from Brian Black mode. Brian Black is Tim's alias, which was often his excuse for a foul mouth or inappropriate behavior, but he wasn't concerned about other operators might need to as well before returning home and getting back to real life. I wasn't offered any help, therapy, or almost any contact between operations. That is very telling. Yes. Tim has become a hero by proclaiming how he puts himself in real danger, but he was discrediting other operators, including myself, who took on the same risks. For example, considering the statement he put up by Spear Fund. Tim enlisted top stylists and Hollywood level help to get disguised, but was not concerned about other operators being exposed, even if it meant we couldn't return back to the country in the future with family or friends. Great point. When my identity was directly compromised with cartel, Tim dismissed it as a non-issue, saying it would be dangerous if it was him, but not for me. Lame. Tim believed his family needed help and protection while he was away, but others didn't. Despite that, I am the only one my kids can rely on to provide, and that we were side by side going into dark and risky places. Okay. Maybe we'll have to pick up the rest of this another day because my voice is going out, but there's still plenty more. If you want to read the full file, I'll have it up by the end of the day, up on my Timmy Did What Patreon. It's gross. It's sticky. That's not the word I want to use. It's just gross. It's obvious at this point. Sorry that we all had to read that together. Hope my jokes weren't too inappropriate. That's how we all just naturally cope with this. I look disheveled right now. I'm looking at myself on camera. Like, I look like I just read a Tim Ballard document. Wow. I'm going through this, and I didn't even have to go to these foreign countries and experience what these women did with Tim Ballard. And I need to go take a break, and I'm not going to be there for my kids like I need to be there today. So if you guys enjoyed is a relative term, but if you appreciated this video, I'd really appreciate back a like and a comment and subscribe to this channel. And if you're really feeling like Carah, you done good, kid. Thank you, Carah and Ryan. My Patreon links are down below. You can get extra content and everything that you want to see and view. And all of our episodes are up there. This podcast is also available. If you skedaddle over to Spotify or Apple, the podcast is available on all of those platforms. And then, of course, we have a donor box. If you want to have a recurring donation, just a couple bucks a month, super helpful. Or a Venmo, it's down below. So that is the Timmy Did What podcast for the day. Any other final comments, questions, or concerns? And I will just have to get back to you in the comments. Follow me on all the platforms. TikTok, if it's still alive and available. We'll see. Larry Ellison not approving of this buyout and purchase. But not that the Zuckerberg platforms are much better. But I'm very active on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and I guess X, if you feel so inclined. All my links are down below, and we have a lot more to cover. We're always trying to get out as fast as we can the things that come to us. But the latest thing, Backfire Part 3, combined with this Krista Casey document and what the therapist had to say. really grateful that we got that out to you guys today. But we will be back very soon with another episode of Good.